Is it right now? Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
I can confirm you are live on YouTube.
Right, okay. I'd like to thank members and officers for attending today's meeting of the Planning Committee, and I also would like to welcome some new members here as well today. And obviously, if there are any questions that you feel you want to ask as we go along, please feel free, whatever they are, because we like to work to the member who's, you know, coming in at the beginning rather than those that know more at the end. And I'd also like to welcome my Vice Chair, Carol Bauer, here today, who we're going to have fun working with together this year ahead. And off we go now then, thank you. So I'm going to ask Kathy, please, to have a roll call to check all members are present.
Thank you. Councillor Bone?
Present.
Councillor Bauer?
Present.
Councillor Bubb?
Present.
Councillor Crofts?
Present.
Councillor Holmes?
Present.
Councillor Hudson? Present. Councillor Lawton? Councillor Manning?
Present.
Councillor Knockholds?
Present.
Councillor Parish?
Present.
We have apologies from Councillor Patel and Councillor Russ. So Councillor Spikings?
Sorry?
Is it? Yeah.
Oh, yes, sorry.
Councillor Squire? Apologies from Councillor Story. Councillor Tyler?
Present.
Councillor De Walling?
Present.
And Councillor Whitby?
Present.
And Councillor Kirk?
Present.
Councillor Rose? And Councillor Sampson? Thank you.
Right, thank you, Kathy. Could I remind members, please, that this meeting is being recorded and streamed live via YouTube, and that it will still be recording during breaks. And because of the acoustics in the town hall, can you only use your microphone on when it's your turn to speak, and obviously turn off as soon as possible. And when addressing the committee, if you have a mask on, please remove and state your name first so all those present know who is speaking. Please speak clearly and focus on the question to be asked. And if you leave the meeting during an item, you will not be able to take part when you return until we move on to the next agenda item. And members, if you could put your phones onto silent, please. Thank you. So I now start the official meeting. We've had item 1, apologies, and I'd like to thank the subs who are here today helping out. And item 2, the minutes. Can I confirm as a correct record the minutes of the meetings held on the 9th and 12th of May 2022, please? Agreed. I'll sign them in later then, thank you. Item 3, declarations of interest. Councillor Squire, you'll be one of them. Did you want to say you've got a declaration of interest because you're going to go out for standing order 34? Do you want to state, please? Yeah, understand that, right. So you'll remove yourself and come understand. Lovely. Councillor Manning.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yes, it's reference agenda item 8.3D, Kingsland Football Club.
Yes.
It's a matter of public record. I'm actually a director trustee of something called Linnets in the Community, along with Mr. Cleve, the owner of the club. It is non-pecuniary, in fact, quite the opposite. I go to the football club and sit in the director's box, but it is all at my own expense, considerably more than normal season ticket. So there's no pecuniary interest, but I am, as I say, the Linnets in the Community is a charitable set up really to promote for all ages, for all different sports, particularly football, obviously. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs. Hudson.
The 8.3, the football club, that is in my ward, and I called this in.
Yes, but you don't need to declare that.
Pardon?
Do you have a pecuniary interest in it?
I'm not, well, my interest is that it's in, I've not an interest in the club, other than the fact that it is in my ward.
You don't need to declare it then.
Thank you.
Does she? No, definitely not. Sorry, Councillor Kirk.
Thank you, Chair. Item 2, Church Farm at Turrington. The people that live in the actual farmhouse do my workwear. Now, I don't know whether the house is anything to do with the application for the building.
Yeah, it's outside the red line, so you're fine. You don't have a pecuniary interest because you have no financial interest in it. Okay, Councillor Lawton, did you have one? Oh, you didn't put your hand up. Okay, No one else? And obviously, members, we note those representatives on the Internal Drainage Board, and we don't have to say any more about that one at the moment. Thank you. Now, item 4, urgent business understanding order 7. I'd just like to remind members, please, that the next meeting of the planning is going to be Wednesday, July the 20th. It's the only one that's moved. Then we go back in September and we'll carry on as normal. But we're trying to, because of the Jubilee, we've had to juggle these couple of dates to give the correct time frames between each meeting. Thank you. And item 5, members attending understanding order 34, we've got Councillor Mrs. Squire, right? Yeah, thank you. Item 6, any correspondence I've given to the relevant officers for their notes and information to be recorded. 7, receipt of late correspondence on applications. Do I have your agreement to receive this, members, please? Agreed. Then 8, index of applications is on page 6 to 7. And now we go on to decisions of applications. And the first one is on page 10. There is a speaker. It's for the parish of South Wootton, proposed 2 new dwellings, a full application, and the recommendation is approved. Is that you, Hannah? Oh, that's Richard. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Good morning, everyone. Members may recall this application was deferred at the April Planning Committee to allow the agent to submit further information to establish if there was a significant shadowing effect to the existing neighbouring properties. Additional information has also been submitted which relates to the concerns regarding the height of the proposed dwellings. The proposal comprises the erection of 2 detached properties with access taken from Grimston Road adjacent to number 90. The 2 plots provide private garden spaces and parking with turning space at the front of the properties. This slide shows the additional information submitted by the agent following the April deferral. The image of the east elevation is making a comparison between the height of the proposed dwelling and that of examples in the locality of chalet bungalows. The site plan showing a hatched area to indicate the area of the shadowing effect from the proposed dwellings, with the bottom image showing the effect through a cross section. The agent has drawn influence for the methodology in the BRE report, Site Layout Planning for Daylight and Sunlight, to demonstrate the level of overshadowing resulting from the proposed dwellings. This document does not form part of the local plan. However, it can be used as a guide by officers and developers alike for planning proposals to determine the potential impacts of new developments in terms of good access to daylight and sunlight for existing properties and their garden spaces. Using the cross-section drawing of Green Lane to the right, the intervening garden spaces, the boundary treatment in the middle, and the proposed 2-storey dwelling. It can be gleaned from the plan that the area, which would normally require a more detailed assessment using the BRE lighting calculations, falls within the garden of the proposed house and not the neighbouring garden or reaching the rear of the neighbouring property. The following 2 slides show the layout and design of the proposed dwellings. The following slides show access onto Grimston Road, leading into the site, and within the site itself. This slide shows the front and rear of the properties on Green Lane, with the view beyond where you can see the application site. And this is the rear of number 4 Green Lane. The additional information relating to a reduction of light to neighbouring properties have been further considered in the recommendation report. Photos showing examples of chalet bungalows have also been considered in respect of the concerns relating to the proposed height of the dwellings and their relationship with the existing form and character of the area. The application is recommended for approval, subject to the originally recommended conditions. The only amendment is to number 4, which now requires measures for a wildlife corridor to be created for ecological purposes. I pass the application back to you, Madam Chairman, for speakers and debate.
Thank you. We have one speaker, Bridget Nurse. Could you come forward, please?
Is Bridget Nurse there, please? Is she coming? Oh, good. Thank you.
You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good morning, Madam Chair, councillors. I'm a director of the proposed development and would like to express firmly that we are very sympathetic to the South Wotton Neighbourhood Plan. I myself am a parish councillor for North Wotton Parish Council, and we too currently are working hard on our village neighbourhood plan, of which we feel is very important to understand what our residents would like to see within our villages, whether it's planning, green spaces, schools, roads and footpaths, and of course the environment. I want to speak today to stress the importance of how we have worked hard with Jade Carlton, our case officer, to reduce the height of the roof on 2 further occasions from our original plan presented in April 21, to comply closely as we could with the 1.5-storey recommendation by South Wotton Parish Council. I have here 3 drawings, which I apologise, I should have let committee know about these drawings before, but this is my first time, so apologies for that. I have these 3, we here revised these drawings twice, changing from a hip style roof to a pitched. We then tweaked this further by drawing number 3 to a height of 7 metres 300 from the ridge height from the first drawing of 8.5 metres. I have here an example of a 1.5-storey chalet bungalow next to a 1.5-storey dwelling, a 2-storey dwelling, showing the height is virtually identical. Our third revised drawing also shows a dotted line on drawing 3, showing how much further this has been revised for shadowing and sunlight and does not encroach on any other neighbouring gardens. As the planning officer reported in her last presentation, the highest point of 1.5-storey chalet bungalow is 7 metres 0.180. Our revision is 7 metres 300, which is the width of this piece of paper that I'm holding up here. This is classed still as a 2-storey dwelling. We feel as a company we've worked hard to achieve this, taking into account South Wotton's neighbourhood plan and borough, and brought to committee that daylight and sunlight drawing requested from a prior meeting. We have worked within the British Research Establishment Guidelines, and we hope that therefore we have satisfied committee of these roof heights and seek approval. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anything to add, officers?
No, thank you, Chairman.
Right, members wishing to speak, please. Quick, come on. Anybody wanting to speak? Right, Councillor Bone.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, here is an outline plan information, and I'm looking at the site, and it just seemed a little bit cramped in comparison to the gardens relating to the area. However, that's already gone. I feel it could be a little bit better. to come into the street scene. It's hard to know which street scene for it to come into, because obviously on the opposite side of the lane you've got an estate which is very cramped in comparison. But if you look from the Green Lane side and the side of Grimston Road, the gardens are quite extensively, and it's quite a big change. I know we're looking at the height, but I've also looked at the photographs relating to the Green Lane, and they are more very much like bungalows, which are in comparison to the house. So I'm slightly undecided. Obviously, I'm concerned about the cramped development. That's been and gone. That's sort of got outline provision. So I'm just going to listen to the debate further and make my conclusion with a little bit more information. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? Councillor Parish, then Councillor Knockholds.
Thank you, Chair. I note that both officers and the applicant have commented on the neighbourhood plan, which is in this area. On page 12, the Parish Council explain why they think their neighbourhood plan is compromised by this application, and they say that they still object to the planning application. They say that an infill development, the loss of privacy, and they'd like to see proposals for bungalows, which is a lower building. And then on the encouraging high quality design, they make several points. One of them being providing for sustainable water management and runoff from rainfall. I don't see a condition in the application to ensure that happens, and incorporate sustainable drainage systems where appropriate. And unless I've missed out the condition, I haven't seen that either. They say the Parish Council does not feel that two large two-storey properties are appropriate for this area. Their interpretation is the interpretation of the people who wrote the neighbourhood plan, and they are the people who manage that parish. So they're the ones whose opinion should have the greatest weight, I'm afraid. So unless we're going to dismiss neighbourhood plans universally and say that the opinions of those who wrote them are less than those who oppose them, I can't see that this application can go forward. Thank you.
Chairman, clearly the officers have assessed the application against the neighbourhood plan. Sometimes parish councils and officers disagree, and officers have evidenced why we consider the application acceptable both in terms of form and character and the appearance of those dwellings, bearing in mind the surroundings of the locality. The judgment is with you as members to consider that in the round. Thank you.
Councillor Knockholds. Thank you, Chairman. I feel this is quite a well-designed development, and I think that reading this, it looks as though they have considered the neighbourhood. Different neighbourhoods got long gardens, some have got very short on the other side. But what I am pleased about is the condition 4 and condition 8, with the condition 4 is about properties having good boundary fences, and the existing trees and hedges must be retained before anything starts. But one thing I don't know whether it's possible, but looking at the actual map on page 9, it does show after the development there could be an entrance into Green Lane, and I'm just wondering whether anything specific could be put in a condition to not allow Green Lane to in the future be used as an entrance or exit to that development.
Obviously, the rest of the part of Green Lane is outside the application site, so we'd only have control over what is within the red line. Clearly, that is an access serving part of those sites. I don't think it's reasonable to place further restrictions on that access lane. And any application going forward would be assessed on its merits anyway. Thank you, Chairman.
Right. Anyone else wishing to speak? Did you have a second point then, Councillor Parish?
Part of my first point wasn't addressed, and that's in the neighbourhood plan under encouraging high quality design. Bullet point 2, provide for sustainable water management and runoff from rainfall, recognising the current increased incidence of higher than average rainfall. Is there a condition to ensure?
There is no condition. Normally with this type of development, With a small scale scheme, it would be dealt with by building regs, but if members see fit, we can impose a surface water drainage condition on there, incorporating sustainable drainage methods. Thank you, Chairman.
Well, it is an item of the neighbourhood plan and it's not been addressed. So surely it should be conditioned.
We've considered it, but as I said, it would normally be dealt with by building control anyway. So we would be duplicating regulations effectively, and if it's covered by building regulations, I don't see that it's necessary. However, if members
sorry,
see that
it's not covered by building regulations. It's covered by a neighbourhood plan.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
It's not covered by building regulations. There's no building regulations that say you've got to have sustainable water management. It's a neighbourhood plan condition that you have to have sustainable water management in new buildings.
And as I said before, if members consider it necessary, then we can impose a condition.
Yeah, it's up to you if you propose this condition or not. Right, so you want to have, what is it, SUDS? Yeah. Can I have the correct
Yes, it would be,
wording?
yes, sorry, Chairman.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be sustainable drainage systems. Thank you.
Right, do I have a seconder then, please? Councillor Diwali, we'll have a vote on that at the end. I'm going to say something here. I see this application was permitted. It was, am I correct, delegated outline application, all matters reserved. So members didn't have a chance when this first came to us, but I do have concerns about this because one of the things was a condition put on that we just have bungalows there for good reason. And to me, although the owners of the land, I presume, I don't know exactly, and I don't know the numbers when I look on the map of page 9, the fact, it looks as if the two of them have obviously joined together and got your land. That's fine. But it's then completely altered the street scene because all of those have got long gardens. And you could, not that we're making a prejudgment or anything, but looking at it, you do get sometimes this domino effect. But I think we've had the condition rightly put in that we do have bungalows there. And when I saw the other ones down there on Green Lane, I thought, well, I can't see how suddenly two houses, be whatever you like to call them, in the middle there with the surround. I think that completely alters the outlook of that street scene. So I'm not particularly happy about that at the moment, and I'll carry on and listen. Sorry,
Chairman. I mean, the surrounding locality is two-story. Richard, can you show the photos again, please, just to show the surrounding locality? It was permitted as 1.5. Clearly, the applicant has demonstrated that 1.5 has the same kind of impact as this two-story element, which is shown on the plans. You can see this two-story at the front. There is no street scene there. And you've got two-story at Stody Drive as well. So I don't think we can say that two-story is out of keeping with the locality.
But that's at Stody Drive. We're talking about Green Lane. And each case is on its merit. And I don't think the fact that there is merit with the other ones on the left, and we show that one, show them again. There's some further pictures, please, of the bungalows that were around it on the left, which there you are. You see, it depends which side of the street you are. That side where these are going are bungalows. And that's the difference.
Chairman, the bungalows that you're seeing there are on Green Lane, which is a different lane, which is, if you look at page 8 of your agenda pages, that is to the right of those properties to the rear. And that is obviously clearly categorised by bungalows. In this locality, you have got two stories surrounding it.
Well, anyway, I'm still going to listen to the debate. Anyone else wishing to speak? No? Sorry, Chris, I didn't see you, Christine. Sorry, Councillor Hudson.
Thank you. My reservation about this is the access. This is a track going down there. And it very much is a track. It's a long way from the road. And I know there's quite a number of houses down there coming off one road, street or another. But it is a long way down. And I'm wondering if it's a good place to build anyway.
Well, it does say under highway safety, as part of the current application, it is proposed to upgrade the existing track to Norfolk County Council standards and provide a minimum distance of 4.5 metre for the first 10 metres, and that's condition 5. So at the beginning of it, there is that, to be fair, in the balance.
Still a lot more track after that.
Yeah, I know. but
Yes, thank you.
thank you. Right, anyone else wanting to speak? Anything else to add, officers? Right, well, anyway, the recommendation here is to improve, and also I have to vote on the condition that Councillor Parish put forward about drainage and suds, seconded by Councillor Wally. Are we happy for that to be put in, please, as a condition? Agreed? Right, then, the recommendation is to approve, including that extra condition. Kathy, do you want to take the vote, please?
Thank you. Councillor Bone,
Against.
Councillor Bauer,
For.
Councillor Bubb,
For.
Councillor Crofts,
4.
Councillor Holmes,
4.
Councillor Hudson, Councillor Lawton, Councillor Manning,
4.
Councillor Knockholt, 4. Councillor Parish,
Against?
Councillor Spiking,
Against?
Councillor Squire, Councillor Tyler,
4.
Councillor Diwali,
Against.
Councillor Whitby,
4.
Councillor Kirk,
4.
Councillor Rose, and Councillor Sampson.
Therefore, that planning is carried as approval. Thank you, members. We now move on to page 25, Turrington St Clement. There is late correspondence on this. It's an outline application for the erection of 76 dwellings with means of site access following demolition of existing structures. And it's an outline application of major development. Recommendation approved. Is that you, Tash, going to do this one?
Yes. Turn yourself off, mute, nothing down. Oh. Okay. So this application is in outline with all matters except access, which would be from Northgate Way, reserved for future consideration. The site lies within Turrington St Clement, to the south of Northgate Way, the west of Ben's Lane, the east of Churchgate Way, and to the north of an approved allocation. The allocation being this parcel of land here. The site lays outside of the development boundary, but adjacent to it. So the site boundary wraps around to the east and above and down here. So it lies outside of the development boundary. However, it is the local authority's preferred option in its emerging local plan. And that plan is considered to be in a position that we can give weight to that particular policy. It's been through public consultation. There was one comment only, none from third parties. There was one comment from Highways, and they had concerns as initially the access was proposed from Ben's Lane. However, this application that now shows access from Northgate Way has addressed the highway concerns during the consultation on whether this site should be allocated. The site itself is in the majority previously developed land. It accommodated, well, it still does accommodate, although the buildings have been removed, a nursery site. The only area that is still classified as countryside is the small area where the balancing pond is shown. So the site does lay in an area at risk of flooding, and the local flood risk, the local flood authority, sorry, I couldn't think for a moment, and the Environment Agency, that there are no objections. And in relation to this being an allocation, we don't have to do the exception test. So it's a sequential test, as it's considered the site has been sequentially tested anyway by virtue of being a preferred option. The site is for up to 76 dwellings, and that is in line with the emerging policy. which is outlined in the report. And this is an indicative plan that shows how those 76 properties could potentially be laid out, including the infrastructure required, which is a balancing pond for the suds, and a play area. What this plan also shows is a secondary vehicular access to the south, leading into the existing allocation. That's only indicatively shown, as well as pedestrian and cycle access to the west onto Churchgate Way. Again, that's indicatively shown. There are conditions that would require those to be put in place in accordance with the emerging policy. I'm going to show you the photos, but just to explain where they're taken from. So if you see this area here to the northwest site, this is a commercial area, and this here is Church Farm House, which is a residential property. We've got Northgate Way here to the north and Ben's Lane that runs around to the east. Down in the left-hand side of your photo, the yellow line depicts the beginning of the conservation area with the dotted line around the Lister Church and its tower. So this photograph shows the boundary between the site and the commercial units, and you can see the church in the distance. Now, in relation to this boundary, you can see on the plans that there is an area set aside for planting. There is also a condition relating to noise attenuation. So further consideration needs to be given to noise in relation to the impact that the commercial may have on the residential. This is another photo in the commercial area. These greenhouses are actually within the development site. They're the last remaining structures on the site. And this shows from the entrance from Northgate Way into the commercial area. So you can see the site in front of you. To the left here of the picture is the entrance to Churchgate Farmhouse. This is showing the entrance to the commercial area. You can see there the signage relating to the commercial units. And just beyond the bend here is where the access will be from Northgate Way into the site. This is looking in the other direction along Northgate Way. The site entrance would be approximately in this location. Now we're looking down Ben's Lane. The application site is to the right-hand side of this photo, and now the opposite view. So we're looking northwards along Ben's Lane with the site to the left-hand side. Sorry, excuse me, of the photo. This is a view from the existing allocation forwards, northwards into the proposed allocation area, which does cover all of this area. And again, you can just see some of the commercial units to the, no, they're the existing greenhouses still on the site that you saw in a previous photo. These are just photographs within the site. So you can see that the majority of structures have been removed, and yet it's kind of overgrown now to some degree. This is a track that currently is on the site, which was a track that was utilised when the site was a nursery. Now, this is a very long view from the south of Ben's Lane, looking towards the site. So you can see the large commercial building that we saw earlier on. Now, when you're looking at this photograph, what you need to appreciate is that the allocated site lies between this photograph and the proposed development. So the issues are as outlined on page 36. The application is recommended for approval subject to completion of section 106, which would secure affordable housing. And the application is before you because the parish council's recommendation is contrary to the officers, and also it's referred by the assistant director. There is late correspondence associated with this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, members, Councillor Crofts.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I believe that you and me would be the last two that went on this site visit to allocate the site for development. And as I recall, there's a major drain right through the middle, and the IDB have got concerns and want to have
a certain amount of control here. But I think it's worth remembering this is in an outline application for at least 76. So if we allow this, it's fine. I've got nothing against it particularly. One or two details I want to come let members or give you my opinion. When we get the reserve matters application, that could be a lot more. This is the point. But at the moment, we will be establishing the principle of the site being a development site and the access. So that's one thing. The other thing, the IDB have got concerns here because they're going to realign that drain that I mentioned earlier. They need to do that. It's right through the middle. And it's a major drain. It's a board maintained drain. So they will want their 9-metre easement strip, as it's called. So they've got access for maintainment purposes. And the IDB mentions, or they say at the end of their contribution, which if you've read it, you will see it's major. And they say, they conduct all the conditions about the Land Drainage Act 1991. As such, I strongly recommend that the required consent from the board is sought prior to determination of this planning application. I wonder, Stuart, what we've done in that area.
That is a general comment from the IDB on every single response they make. They suggest that it is, their consent is sought and granted prior to a decision being issued. So that's no different to any other application that the IDB consult on. The lead local flood authority have looked at this in great detail, and the changes, so there was an updated flood risk and drainage assessment that was submitted probably a year or so ago. That's relevant because this application is very old. If you look at the reference, it's a 2018 application. So they've updated those documents, and in calculating runoff, etc., they have actually done that in association or together with the IDB.
Am I to take it then that they've been consulted and they're happy with the thing to proceed?
The IDB's comments haven't changed from these comments. However, the lead local flood authority have been in consultation with the IDB and the applicant, and the drainage calculations are all considered acceptable for this site. So there are conditions requiring further information, and notwithstanding that, the IDB's bylaws would have to be obtained, but that does not have to hold up the planning application. It can run concurrently alongside it.
I do take your point, but the lead local flood authority is Norfolk County Council, obviously, who would not be as conversant with this site as the IDB are. So I've still got concerns, and I often say IDBs in cases such as this is major, should be statutory consultees. I often argue that. I know they're not, but I accept what you've just said.
Thank you. Councillor Diwali.
Thank you, Chair. I just really want clarification over the sequential test, because this is going to the inspector. I'm concerned about flood risk. The officer's report on page 40 says, in brackets, flood zone 2 and 3. My understanding from the maps is this is flood zone 3A in its entirety. So I'd like confirmation of that. And it's not necessary to undertake the sequential test on allocated sites. Well, surely it's not allocated until the inspector has approved it. And the inspector may say, don't like the flood risk. So is it possible to get clarification on that? And also, is it possible to have a look at the sequential test scoring and have a quick explanation of because the sequential test is quite subjective, why it was felt those scores were appropriate? That would be helpful to me. And there's also bats as well. Incidentally, I was visited by a bat. It visited in my kitchen about 3 weeks ago. But there's a condition about lighting to reduce disturbance for insects and improve the, I'm just trying to find that, forgive me. I'm moving from electric to paper. No, I can't see it at this moment. If anyone can help me, I'm grateful. But I just feel that it was the condition for the lighting was relatively woolly. I didn't know whether we could specify more effectively in terms of the lighting, saying, can we have LED and down lighting for the street stroke foot lighting? And also, is it possible to consider providing, to ask the developer to provide roosts either within the properties or within the development for
Lighting
bats?
is 20, condition 20.
Condition 20, thank you so much. And finally, there was, yeah, I'm a little still concerned about the traffic in that will, I can appreciate that there's every effort to mitigate traffic going into Ben's Lane, but there is still an impact from the development on Ben's Lane, and it doesn't look to me an entirely suitable route. And certainly that was mentioned in the, I think the sustainability appraisal.
Condition 15, they have got a construction management plan. And I do seem to recall we had a lot of traffic there when we went on a site visit, Chris, didn't we? So I think it's been tested.
And last question, what is considered to be the lifetime of the proposal? I couldn't find that. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, I appreciate what you're saying about the sequential test, and if the site is not found acceptable by the inspector, then the sequential test would need to be undertaken. However, in that regard, there are no sites at lower risk of flooding than this site, so it would pass the sequential test, although obviously don't have that evidence here to show you, but that is the case. I can say that is the case. So in relation to where it says flood zones 2 and 3, previously where we've said flood zone 3, so you're quite right, it's all at flood zone 3, but it's also all at flood zone 2. So it is in flood zones 2 and 3. Before, when we've said it's in flood zone 3, someone said, well, it's also in 2. Yes, it is. To get to 3, you have to go through 2 first. So the whole site is in flood zones 2 and 3. In regard to the lighting, whilst you might consider it woolly, it requires all details. So we need those details. So when those details come in, we would consider if they are acceptable. And if they don't show what would be considered acceptable, then we wouldn't discharge that condition. So I believe we can consider all lighting aspects under the condition that is covered. So you mentioned Ben's Lane. The access point was actually changed from Ben's Lane to Northgate Way. Now, we can't say for sure that people are going to turn left out of Northgate Way or whether they're going to turn right and use Ben's Lane. You know, we can't account for human habits, if you like. If it was me, I would turn left and go down Northgate Way because it is a better route. But there we go. In terms of highway assessment, they consider this access to be suitable. And in terms of the allocation itself, highways considered it was a reasonable location in terms of highway safety also.
Oh, all right. Done.
Just finally, the expected lifetime of the proposal,
that was the last one, the expected lifetime.
The expected lifetime of what?
The actual project that you talk about in the flooding, the mitigation within the lifetime of the development. What is the expected lifetime of these properties, please?
Well, it will be there for a very long time. Oh, yeah.
So one assumes it's in perpetuity?
Yes.
Thank you.
Right. I've got Councillor Holmes next, please.
Yes.
Then Squires, Parish and Hudson.
Thank you, Chair. Going back to Councillor Croft's comments on the IDB and the required gap around the drain, I've got 2 comments. One, the drain exits the existing area, which has got planning permission. If you can look on the map, it's surrounded by on the slide 22, it's surrounded by an easement area. So they've taken that into account already. It's not actually within the actual build site, although I do see it's adjacent to the play area, so it may need some mitigation on safety for children. Second thing, there was a mention in the papers about the distance for the church, etc. You can also notice from some of the photographs, the existing industrial area is actually closer to the church than the development's likely to be. And finally, one of the third-party comments is about Ben's Lane. I'll read it. The attempt to get HGV restriction and bending road signs along Ben's Lane have been declined by the council, which seems to indicate to me that the current density of traffic along there is fairly light, or at least within acceptable limits for a road of that size. Otherwise, some preventative signage would have been put in already. Thank you.
Anything to comment on that, Tash?
Not really. I mean,
No.
it's quite right that the drain is in the area and its diversion is already covered by the existing outline. But this proposal will drain into that drain. So drainage is a consideration. But yeah, the movement of this drain, which is being moved, that is covered by the previous application. The play area is indicatively shown, as is everything else, to be fair, other than this access from North Gateway.
Right, Councillor Squires, next.
Thank you. This is my ward, an area that I know very, very well, and I have major concerns. If you go to the next slide, the one after this one. No, not the photo, the plan showing the church at the bottom. That's it. Turrington is quite a unique village in that it comes in several parts with a very wide open green centre that some of it's grass, some of it's agricultural. So it means that in the village, you can be in the middle of houses 1 minute and feel like you're in the middle of the countryside the next. There is a lot of development recently in Turrington St Clement, a lot. Traffic in the village is getting significantly worse. I note the photos of Ben's Lane. They don't show quite how narrow that lane is. It does get an awful lot of traffic for what is a single track lane, particularly down the southern end. Church Gateway has both schools on it, the high school one side and the primary the other. If anyone wants to drive down or up Church Gateway during school drop-off and pick-up time, it is utter carnage and the whole village is affected. So people use Ben's Lane as a rat run to get back. So I have major concerns about the access into the extant planning permission for 44 dwellings, because people will go Ben's Lane because they know that once they come out onto North Gateway and they want to come back into Church Gateway, it is going to be carnage with cars parked both sides. It will be horrible. The flooding I have major issues with. Do we look at the cumulative effect of several applications in an area rather than just each one on its merits? Because if you fill in that whole green area, it changes the whole spirit of the village completely. It's becoming more of a town. Both schools are full. The doctor's surgery, I believe, is also full. So to put so many houses back into Turrington St Clement, I share the parish council's concerns. I have to support them as their ward councillor, because yes, we do need houses, but the access in that area, and if you want to go and see it, if you want to do a site visit, that would be great, because the school times, the traffic's horrendous. And highways, while they say they have no objection, what they're really saying is we couldn't defend it at appeal, so we won't bother. But they do have concerns, and so do I. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything to add, Tash?
Well, I would just say that this site isn't a greenfield site. 90% of it is previously developed. It has a lawful development certificate on 60% of it. So it could be used for a commercial use. We could therefore be looking at larger vehicles, but that's just what could potentially happen. In relation to the area of open space, this site is really, it's surrounded by built form, or it will be when and if this site is built out. We've got development to the east, to the north, to the northwest. There would be boundary treatment between this area. So you do still have this large area of green space in between. And like I say, it is a material consideration that this is actually, other than where the balancing pond is, which would clearly remain, if you like, green space, it wouldn't be built on. All of this area is brownfield. It's previously developed land. In terms of, you mentioned cumulative effect, in terms of drainage, this site has taken into account the cumulative impacts of the extant permission as well. So in terms of these two sites, cumulative drainage has been considered. Yeah, I don't think there's anything else.
Right, Councillor Parish, please, next.
Thank you, Chair. I note on page 25, and there are several references to it, but this represents the local authority's preferred option for housing in the emerging local plan. Well, the word there is emerging, and I'm well aware of the emerging local plan because I've been on the local plan task group for some years. I have concerns that such weight is given to an emerging local plan when no weight is given at all to an emerging neighbourhood plan. That's dismissed because it hasn't gone to referendum, yet they may have gone to inspection. This plan hasn't gone to inspection. It's reminiscent of a large-scale application that was made at the beginning of the current local plan on the outskirts of Heacham. It's a very controversial application for many houses, and if it had gone to the inspector, there would have been representation from the parish council and from many, many people to say why they shouldn't have this development go forward. This authority rushed that application and shoved it through before inspection. So the inspector hadn't got a chance to consider the whys and wherefores of the application. And I do have concerns that this is being done again. There are 99 public objections to this application. There is a parish council objection to this application. What should happen is that this should go forward to the inspector. The inspector will then receive the words of the parish council and the populace and decide whether this is a sound application or not. In addition to that, we've heard concerns about flooding, and the excuse that it can be used is because there are no other sites in the village that are any better off for flooding than this one. Well, it seems to be a rather strange argument. We'll have to build on this flooded area because all the other areas are flooded as well. It's an outline application, and the trouble with outline applications across the borough have always been, as has already been mentioned by Councillor Crofts, is that you give an outline permission for at least something, and it becomes at least something else. So I feel, in balance, that this should be deferred until and when the emerging new local plan has actually passed the inspection process, so that the people who it's affected can have their opportunity to speak to the inspector and say why they think it shouldn't go ahead or why they think it should. We are being premature at this moment in time. We are negating that process, and we're making assumptions that it's hunky-dory because it's in an emerging plan.
Right,
Thank
Stuart.
you.
I would disagree that we don't give weight to neighbourhood plans. We have obviously dealt with Heacham neighbourhood plan, and we have quoted that a number of occasions before. It has gone to referendum and other ones. But paragraph 48 talks about emerging plans, and obviously the greater the way they are down the process, the more weight you give to them. Our plan has been submitted to examination as the plan that is supported by the council, and that is now put at formal examination at the moment. It's called a prematurity argument, where effectively something comes forward ahead of it being formally adopted. That is only a reason for refusal in very, very unusual, exceptional circumstances. For example, if it's going to harm the plan as a whole. And there's very clear advice on this in the National Planning Policy framework. So my strong advice is that prematurity would hold no weight if it as a reason for refusal. And again, paragraph 48 to 50 of the MPPF are quite clear. What they say, it's only reasonable to justify refusal where the development is so substantial, its cumulative effect is so significant that to grant permission would undermine the plan making process by predetermining decisions about the scale, location or phasing of new development central to the emerging plan. Well, that's not the case here.
Right, Councillor Parish.
Very quickly. On flooding, there's no technical. There's no technical objections from the range of consultees that we've gone to on this issue. In terms of numbers, we have put a condition on this, no more than 76 for this application. But I take your point. Obviously, further up, it would have to be a separate full application for any more than that because that's conditioned as part of this outline.
Right, Councillor, you've heard the explanation about why we are not proposing for a deferral. Are you still proposing that in your statement you said you wanted it deferred? Are you still going to go along with that comment, or are you going to, having heard advice from Stuart that you wish to retract it?
I would propose deferral, but I'd like to see any other people in the debate first.
Sorry, I can't understand what you said. Just say it again.
Yes, I would propose deferral, but I'm prepared and would prefer the debate to continue.
Right. So I shall go back to you at the end then. Okay. Go back. Councillor Hudson. Sorry.
Madam, could I add something, please?
Yes, of course.
So whilst we're talking about the emerging local plan and the weight to be given to that in relation to this application, also point out that on page 38, we do actually look at this application on its own merits. For example, if the emerging plan wasn't there, and paragraph 69 talks about the importance that small and medium-sized sites give and how they're located within the existing settlement. And in this regard, it is centrally located. Whilst there's arguments against it being close to the schools, it is close to the schools, it's close to the health centre, it's brownfield site, and it is immediately adjacent to the existing development framework. So the emerging plan aside, if you like, there are material considerations in favour of this application that I think need to be considered alongside the emerging plan. Right. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mrs Hudson next.
Thank you, Chair. My main concern is the fact that we've got 79 houses there, a possible 44 on the south of this site going to be built, and all these houses are going to be accessed through one point on Northgate Way. There is a pathway, but there is no other vehicle access to that area except Northgate Way. So what's going to happen if there's a fire in there? Are we going to be able to get fire engines in and people out when we've only got one access point? It seems to me, I know we've got lots of estates that were built in the 60s, 70s and 80s that have only got one exit. But we're now in the 21st century. We should be considering these points. We shouldn't be considering building an estate of this size with only one access point.
I don't think you've got that quite right.
No.
Tash, would you come
Yeah,
back,
so
please?
this site for 76, yeah, will be accessed from Northgate Way. The site to the south, the existing site with 44 dwellings, has an access, a permitted access. This is a permitted application with an access off Ben's Lane. So the wider site, if you like, the 76 plus the 44, if you did have a vehicular route between, would have two accesses, one onto Northgate Way, one onto Ben's Lane. But at the moment, the allocation to the south has its own access onto Ben's Lane.
Okay, so we've got that clarified. No, I don't think you need to. They'll have to do it. Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to acknowledge the conditions from 29 to 33, which actually look after the hedgerows and wildlife. They did actually mention bats in the area, and care is being taken about developing at the right time of year. But I'd like to propose that bat boxes are included, as well as we are actually trying hard to encourage wildlife.
Just a second, I'm just going to see if they're already, yeah, I'm just going to see if they're already in though. Tash, are these already in or they need to be added?
Yeah, no, they are in. There is a condition that relates to, yeah, there we go. So 32. So the development shall be carried out in full accordance with the recommendations of the ecological appraisal. So that goes into details and does actually require bat boxes.
Yeah, because it gives the reason upon protected species is minimised.
Thank you very
That's
much.
all right.
That's
That's
lovely.
yeah, that's better to ask now than wait till after. Councillor Kirk, I've got you next, please. Then I've got Councillor Cross from you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I fully support Councillor Squire's objection and the parish council's. This is within my county division. Major concerns there is the traffic, Ben's Lane, North Gateway. I use that route a lot myself, and it is school time. It's absolute congestion there, nose to tail stops. This is the major concern of the parish council. We've also got the fire station down Ben's Lane. That's only a real narrow road. The fire station gets a call out, although it's retained at school time or traffic leaving this estate. It's going to be mayhem down there. Fully support Councillor Cross concerns about the drainage as well. Being an IDB member myself, I can see the problems that are going to come there. The surface runoff from this estate, you're going to have a lot of water runoff there. Could cause a problem. Fully appreciate that nursery is no longer viable. You've got to do something with the land, but maybe commercial units will be less traffic than a housing estate, industrial units. Thank you. I'll be objecting to it. Thank you.
Thank you. You're not proposing anything, just objecting. Right. Thank you, Councillor Cross.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I wish to propose something. When I look at this application, my concerns are over the moving of the drain, which is unusual. It doesn't just drain this proposed estate, which could be bigger than 76 houses. It also takes water from other places that is within Turrington. They all interlink. That's what happens. So it's not just this estate. The other concerns I've heard from members about the entrance, and I remember the Ben's Lane bit being a concern, then, and it does narrow. I don't know it as in depth like our members do, Councillor Kirk and Councillor Squire. But because of this situation, and most of the people here have not seen it, I'm going to propose, I've not done this for years, I'm going to propose we have a site visit. If I can get a seconder, I'd want to turn it down. And if we agreed, we could look at all these concerns when we're actually on site. I propose we have a site visit.
Councillor Squires, are you seconded it? Then I'm going to put it to the vote. Those who want a site visit, please. That's a site visit, I can tell you that. Yes, what day will that be, Cathy, please?
Tuesday, the 21st of June.
Tuesday, the 21st, and we will obviously give you arrangements for what we're doing, etc. That's no problem. Right, thank you.
Madam Chairman, I was just going to reiterate that when you do go to the site visit, the drain has permission to be moved under the extant permission to the south. Yes, absolutely.
Hannah, did you want to say something? It is carried, yes. Now, Councillor Squires is going to leave now. Is that right? Did you want to? Yeah, thank you. Don't need to give a reason. Right, thank you. So, members, I'm going to stop for a comfort break now because of certain circumstances. And what's the time, Stuart? Time?
10:34.
10:34, so we're back at 1:45, please, 11:45. Thank you. Just remember, we're in recess, members. Richard. No, David was a long while ago. Right, Richard.
Just share my screen first.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, excuse me. Thank you, Madam Chairman. This application site is to the south of the junction of Malthouse Crescent and is located within the development boundary of Heacham. There are residential areas to the north and open land to the east. The site currently forms the plot of the donor dwelling, Malthouse Farm, which is to the west, outlined in blue. The proposal is for the subdivision of the existing plot, erection of a single-storey dwelling, and the creation of a new curtilage. Access is taken from the north, leading off Malthouse Crescent, with parking located between the front of the proposed dwelling and the boundary edge. Excuse me. Private garden space is to the south and to the rear of the property. The proposed dwelling measures 8 metres in width by 14 metres in length. The northern gable elevation includes red-facing brickwork with carstone infill and 2 windows. Materials to the other elevations comprise red-facing brickwork, aluminium doors, UPVC windows, rainwater goods. The eastern elevation includes an open-sided porch with timber posts covering the front door and 3 windows. Windows are on all sides with a large opening facing the rear garden. This is a slide showing the existing boundary wall with Malthouse Crescent. This shows the eastern boundary with the 4 trees proposed to be removed in the centre of the image. The key issues for this application relate to the form and character, impact on neighbouring amenity, removal of trees and wall, and highway safety and parking. The application has been recommended for approval with conditions to secure boundary treatments, foul and surface water drainage, tree protection for the retained trees, highway works, and principal residents of the property. I'll pass the application back to you, Madam Chairman, for speakers and debate.
Thank you. Right. Jordan.
We have one speaker, Jordan Cribb. You have 3 minutes, Jordan.
Thank you. Good morning, members. I think it's important firstly to outline why this application is before you. The previous design was submitted to the local authority. However, concerns were raised by the case officer. We took on all of those comments and made significant amendments to the proposal, which effectively resulted in a new design. The changes included a simplified design with a traditional brick and carstone frontage as requested. The application was objected to twice by the parish council, who are the only objectors on this application. The objection is two sentences long and is an objection based on the grounds of backyard development, access and removal of trees. I note that despite the extensive changes, the parish council copy and pasted their objection, which was disappointing. I'll address those objections now. Removal of trees. The proposal includes removing 3 trees, not the 4 that were mentioned. These are very small trees, none of which have a stem over 190 millimetres, as per the arboricultural report. Replanting is not an issue, and importantly, Richard Fisher does not object to the application. The advice of a well-respected tree officer should supersede that of the parish council. The highways officer has no objection to the application, and therefore an objection relating to access from the parish council would not hold weight should this application go before an inspector. A small section of wall which is in poor state and due for partial demolition is to be removed regardless of the outcome of this application. The proposed dwelling sits adjacent to the donor dwelling, access straight off of Malthouse Crescent. Both the proposed dwelling and donor dwelling face the road and are not accessed via a narrow lane down the side of a property. I do not understand how this can be deemed backland development. Regarding the neighbourhood plan is at draft stage. I know there's been a lot of talk today about emerging plans. and as stated by the case officer, should not be a reason for refusal or give weight in a decision. Can I ask, if a neighbourhood plan is at draft stage, should conditions relating to that neighbourhood plan be included in an approval? I refer to recommended for condition 12. The case officer has provided a very concise and detailed report explaining why this application is acceptable, and I shall point out some key elements of their support. Number one, the site lies within the development boundary of Heacham. Number two, materials and form of the dwelling is coherent and represents a good design. Number three, dwelling would be in scale with the size of the plot. Number four, the modest development provides a suitable addition to this needed level of housing with the Heacham. They're referring to the emerging neighbourhood plan. There would be no adverse impact on the amenity of any neighbouring properties. Number five. Number six, reference can be given to the neighbourhood plan policies, but they cannot be used as a reason for refusal. And finally, number seven, overall, it is considered that this development is acceptable and is fully policy compliant at national, local and neighbourhood level. I would encourage you all to read the first paragraph of the conclusion as written by the case officer. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jordan.
Anything to add, Richard?
No, nothing to add, thank you.
Right, I'll open it up for debate. Members wishing to speak then, Councillor Bubb.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm looking at this plan. It looks to me like they've worked out the minimum possible piece of ground that you can stuff a little house onto. It's a very cramped into that site. You've barely got 3 or 4 feet to the front, to the side, or to the either side of it, which would be the front and the rear, looking at it. It's a miserable overdevelopment of that piece of ground. If the ground was a bit more generous, that would be okay. But as far as I can see, it's just a cramped design in a small plot.
Thank you, Councillor Parish.
Well, as you all know, this is my ward and I called this in. I called it in a long time ago and I had to refresh my mind as to why I'd called it in. And I was going to be quite quiet until I heard the speaker. First of all, can you look at the map, you know, the scale drawing on the screen, please? It shows the location. The previous one, I think, yeah. The
Previous one, please, Richard.
One that shows some of the
That
houses
one.
and things around. Oh, that's not so good as the one. You might as well look at page 55 on your documents, really. Right, you see the hatched area, which is Malthouse Farm, and the hatched area is where this proposed development is. Now, this committee refused 2 dwellings at number 53, and they refused the dwelling where Malthouse Crescent writing on the road ends and it turns a junction, there's a little tiny bungalow stuck there, and this committee refused that on the grounds of too cramped and so on. Next to the hatched area, you'll see a sort of little bit that sticks out from the field at the back of Malthouse Farm. Well, that is the site for 135 houses, which have passed outline permission and are awaiting reserve matters. And that bit of white next to the hatched area is the emergency access and egress point to those 135 houses for emergency vehicles. The path which goes in front of the Malthouse Farm and front of the hatched area is the major walking route to the junior school. You'll see the junior school just over the other side of Cheney Hill there. So countless people walk along there in the mornings and afternoons, fetching and carrying children. It's mentioned that somehow some trees will be removed, and they're only small trees, so they don't count. And Richard Fisher was complimented for not objecting to those. Well, the parish council objected because if you walk along that pathway, what you see is that row of trees which tend to be removed next to the larger horse chestnut tree. So it's a street scene which looks pleasant. And the wall, and it's news to me that it's going to be removed anyway. It's an historic wall. It's the old wall of the old existing farm. It's in bad repair because this owner or the previous owner failed to maintain it, despite maybe the previous owner, so I don't want to get in trouble. Despite frequent requests from the parish council for repairs to be carried out, they refused to do so. but it's a wall which has got no great merit, I suppose, but it's an old wall that looks different than the awful fences that people put alongside their properties. It's inhabited by various plants, and it looks pleasant in season. So, this area has had applications refused before because it's on the grounds that they're just sort of plopping proposals into garden space. It's a well-used footpath for a school and for other people. It's a bit of a narrow twisting road. It's got two bends in it at each side of this application. And the parish council objected on the grounds of traffic and amenity, really, and it's a reasonable objection. I would like to say that the officers have actually acknowledged the neighbourhood plan in this case. Thank you very much. The neighbourhood plan actually goes to referendum tomorrow, so we're very close to the neighbourhood plan. I note that the applicant or the speaker said that they didn't like the condition 12, which means that the property has to be occupied as a primary residence. But then they argued that providing this property would provide much needed two-bedroom properties to the people of Heacham. Well, obviously it wouldn't if it went to a holiday home or was let out for holiday purposes, which of course part of the farm is or was. It's holiday residence, so it could be just an extension of that. So that condition is essential, and you can't argue, two sides of the argument. You can't say it shouldn't be there, but this provides houses for the village. I would add that the village doesn't actually require many houses at the moment, because it has got this 135 next door to this farm, about to commence, come through the system and about to commence building. So there are plenty of houses in the pipeline, and there are houses already being built in the village too. So I'm rambling now, so I'll stop there, and that's it.
Stuart, just come back about that wall.
Yeah, I mean, the wall can be removed at any time. It's not protected in any way. It's not associated with it. And again, I will correct me if I'm wrong, but there's no protection for it. It is a nice wall. And it's nice that they've kept it. And obviously the proposal is to keep the remainder, but it could be pulled out, and a fence 1 metre high could be put in. Unfortunately, that's the reality of the situation, that they're not protected as such. In terms of the other comments, the footpath, I think it's going to be very difficult to uphold that just because you've got one property coming onto a footpath. That happens everywhere, so you won't be able to use that as a reason for refusal. Condition 12, yes, we put it on because it's due tomorrow. The examiner has agreed with that policy in terms of second homes policy for each neighbourhood plan, so that's why we've imposed that condition 12 in accordance with the neighbourhood plan.
I myself, we went out for the first time in about 2 years and had pre-site visits. So we went to this site and had a look. But quite honestly, this is a modest 2-bed bungalow in a plot that is more than ample to hold it. Yes, they will punch through the wall, but the wall has had numerous repairs over the year. Yes, it has a pleasing thing, but actually state of it isn't in the best. And like we said from Stuart, it can come down any time. There's no protection for this wall. So we have got that it will be punched in. The tree officer's happy with it. You've got a condition 12 saying that it will be for the locals, etc. Well, quite honestly, the fact that there are going to be more houses next door, that could be as, when and how that's built out. This is one modest 2-bed bungalow that people in the village or with the connections are more likely to be able to afford than a lot that have come forward for people. It's a bungalow. That's another plus, especially as there's an aging population and we need more bungalow. So for me, having seen it, having heard the comments, had an open mind, this recommendation to me is the right one. And I'm sorry, I just couldn't uphold your comments. Is anyone else wishing to speak on this one? Is that Councillor Bone?
Thank you, Chair. I'm in agreement with Councillor Bubb. I'm looking at it, and as it stands, I feel it is in cramped development. I just think it's the entrance, the site is too small. If perhaps the donor garden gave up a little bit more land, it feels. I'm in agreement with yourself. I just, although I welcome a bungalow for support and aid, and I think a lot of conditions have been put forward, I just think it's just the site's just not big enough to take it. It doesn't sit very well, and for that reason, I can't support it.
Right, Councillor Bauer.
I suggest we have a site visit to look at this, as we're having a site visit anyway.
I'll second it. So I'm going to put forward that we go for a site visit. We're out already, and it seems contentious for what it is. I'm proposing a site. Those in favour of a site visit, please. We're having a site visit with this one as well then. Thank you, members. So we'll just go for that as well. Thank you. Right. Now I have Hot Wilton on page 67, and there is late correspondence, members. 2 speakers, and it's a retrospective change of use of first floor agricultural building to residential. And there is a correction in the late. A full application, and it's recommended refuse. Right, is that you, Lorna? Or
yeah,
Hannah?
it's me, thank you.
Lorna.
So this it's been referred to committee by the assistant director, but there's also the parish council objects to this application on grounds of road safety, inaccuracies of information submitted, and failure to comply with the local plan. It's being recommended for refusal. Here, I'll just go through the site plan with you. So the site itself is off Moor Drove East, and it's located 700 metres from the village of Hockwell, Wilton. So it's a retrospective application. So the first, it's an agricultural, well, it was an agricultural building, and the first floor is being used in residential. So as it's retrospective, they want to get planning permission for this use. There's a few external alterations proposed. One of these are new outdoor stairs and some windows, but I'll show you on the latter on the next pages. The surrounding area is quite remote. There's not so many buildings, there's some paddocks around it. There's also, there's quite a lot of history for this site. There was 8 storage containers got planning permission at committee along here. So I'll just come on to the next one. So this is showing the layout. So you can kind of see it's 3 bedrooms here, the living space upstairs. There's also a kitchen store there, and then the majority of the ground floor would be used as agricultural storage use. I mean, we have concerns with the uses together, because noise associated, for instance, with the agricultural storage use, and also the storage containers here. And then the people living above, it's not great for amenity issues. And also there's no garden proposed for this. I'll just go on to that's the existing, and then I'll just show you. They're also proposing, as I explained before, some stairs to get upstairs, some external stairs, and then some windows, some external windows are also being proposed. You can see along here. So you can see what the accommodation would be. The applicant is arguing about the fallback position that they could do this change of use through the prior approval process. However, we disagree with that because they've implemented it. They've already started the works. They wouldn't be able to do it that way. There's also, in the prior approval process, you'd have to consider noise and things like sighting and things like that. And there's also, so I think they would require prior approval for those anyway. So it wouldn't be a straightforward able to do it. So we don't agree that they could have a fallback position for this. It's in the countryside, the development, and it's against the local plan policies in that respect. So we're concerned with, it's not the most sustainable of location, it's not the best quality of accommodation, there's noise issues, and that's why it's being put forward for refusal. So I'll just show you some photos now. So there's a view from the access looking in towards the site. You can see the building here. And then these are these storage containers got approval, so they're adjacent to the building itself. So, and that's outside the application site, so there would be no control over, you know, their use and noise associated, for instance. This is the building itself. And the building here where the insert windows. And then you can see like there's some paddocks surrounding the site, and then the building itself is over this way. Thank you, Chairman. There was just to clarify that there was some late reps, just a few minor corrections in that, but nothing that affects the proposal itself. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Leslie Randall. Sorry, I forgot to put my speaker on. Leslie Randall, would you like to come forward, please? You have 3 minutes, Leslie.
Thank you. My name is Leslie Randall and I'm the chair of Holdcombe Wilton Parish Council, and I'm here today to speak on behalf of the council. You will have seen a copy of the letter of objection from our parish council, which was mainly centred around whether the application met the circumstances contained in the West Norfolk Core Strategy of 2011. The council was of the opinion that the circumstances were not met, and our comments therefore are still relevant. I believe that it was only due to a request from the parish council to the enforcement team on the 7th of January 2021 that eventually resulted in this application for a retrospective change of use. The council had received a photo from a parishioner of an advert for the building that had been seen in a letting agency window, which, by the way, we understand is owned by the applicant, as far back as 21st of July 2020. It stated that on their visit, the enforcement team had been told that the property had been empty for some time, but on more than one occasion, we received complaints of illegal residents had been seen by passers-by who had witnessed the fire door being quickly closed, perhaps suggesting people didn't want to be seen. In the advert, the description mentioned the first floor fire door on the south elevation, but it's rather concerning that if there had been a fire, residents would have been expected to jump to safety, and it's only now that there is mention of an external stairwell that would be fitted. Much of our housing legislation is based on safety for the occupants, so it would seem unfair to tenants that the owner could rent out an illegally converted agricultural building and then obtain retrospective planning permission for it. It's understood there is no mains water supply to the property, and drinking water on site is from a borehole. Water needs to be a certain distance from human sewerage and from animal muck heaps. There's no way of knowing if these distances have been observed, but the building in question is on the same piece of land which is currently being used for an equine care business, for which, by the way, permission has only been allowed for a temporary caravan at a planning meeting in July last year, another retrospective application. Looking back through the applicant's many applications, one has to assume that he is well aware of the planning application process. So why are so many of them retrospective, be it for storage containers, use of land for temporary mobile accommodation, construction of chicken runs, to name but a few? I hope you can understand the frustration of the parish council. We have reported businesses, buildings, events, and now residential accommodation that have been done all without planning permission. They are then allowed to put in retrospective planning applications that seem to then be agreed. The last thing we want to encourage is for potential.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm afraid your time's up now.
I would also
Leslie.
like to thank the parish council for coming to speak. It's a rarity at the moment, and your time and chat has been much considered. Thank you.
Thank you. Could Brian Rutherford come forward, please? No, I just. Thank you, Brian. You have 3 minutes.
Right, then. Thank you, Madam. Good morning to your committee. I purchased the farm in January 2014 from a couple of ladies who've been living there for at least 5 years, which they had permission to. They had the agricultural building built in 2009/2010. It was an agricultural use because they had a rare breed of chickens and had a hatchery in the building. So the barn was used before the 20th of March 2013. The building had when I bought it, or it had a toilet, kitchen, and a large room on the first floor. I then had a meeting with the Barrett family. They're a family that lived in Hockwell for several years, and asked me about a joint venture at 12-acre farm. I agreed then to start up a horse delivery business, which they had horses of their own, and expand their farming contracting business based on which is now a 12-acre farm. Since they've been very successful and they've opened up a storage business, only a bit small, and to benefit delivery, they've also opened up a cleaning business. The business has expanded, and they need to improve the barn to have living accommodation on the first floor. During COVID, I got my men to convert the first floor into a living area, which is only an extension of what was already there. I think the Q-class building would be okay. The living space would provide a local person with accommodation, employment, and security for the site. There's never been anything added to the outside of the building. It's all done internally, and we had made use of the first floor, which had no other use. I improved the access of the main roads for highways to cost me over £12,000 to put a curb and tarmac access in, improved the trackway down to the farm, not just for my use, but the Environment Agency, who use the road on a daily basis, along with other people who have horses and cattle down there, and farmers as well. I employed a chorus from various ends, our planning company, to put the application in for me, and they said, well, I'd done the wrong thing in doing it before getting the permission. But being that already had been started by the ladies previously, I thought I would just improve in the barn, which got them, they're still in agricultural use, but they're putting another floor in. The place has improved greatly since the Barrett family have been working there, and it's much tidier, sting nettle free, and it looks much better.
Thank you very much, Brian. Your time's up, I'm afraid.
Thank you.
Right, any further comments, please? No? Right, thank you. Members, I'm opening it up for debate, please. Councillor Crofts?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I always like to hear the local member's opinion, but the local member is not here, isn't he? That's which is a pity. But looking at this, I'm trying to look at how I can vote in favour, and it's against all our planning rules, and really, as much as I have sympathy, but when it comes to planning permission, this is retrospective. I'm not very fond of that, never have been. And to be perfectly frank, our planning policies do not allow this to proceed. The recommendation for officers is the correct one. So I can see no fault in what they recommend.
Thank you. Right, in which case I'm going to take the recommendation, which is to refuse. Kathy, please.
Thank you.
Voting on refuse.
Councillor Bone?
4.
Councillor Bauer?
4.
Councillor Bubb?
4.
Councillor Crofts?
4.
Councillor Holmes?
4.
Councillor Hudson? 4. Councillor Lawton? Councillor Manning?
4.
Councillor Knuckles?
4.
Councillor Parish?
4.
Councillor Spikings? 4. Councillor Squire? 4. Councillor Tyler?
4.
Councillor Dwally?
4.
Councillor Whitby?
4.
Councillor Kirk?
4.
Councillor Rose? 4. And Councillor Sampson? Yeah, that was carried
That's
unanimously.
carried. Could I just ask a point of clarification before I move on to the next one, please, Stuart? When we had the application for the storage containers, Did we have these put that they must all be one colour? And because what I saw there wasn't my memory serving me well, could we go back and make sure, please, they are sprayed to the correct colour, please?
Chairman, I've already picked that up one from the photos. Thank you.
Right. Kingsland, we're on page 78 now, please, members. Erection of two-storey rear extension. It's a full application and the recommendation is approve. It's called in by Councillor Russ, but she's not here at the moment. So, thank you, please. Is that you, Hannah? Oh, Richard? Oh, sorry about that.
No,
Richard,
that's great. Thank you, Madam Chairman. This application relates to a detached property located in the residential area Kingsland. The property benefits from a front and rear garden with a drive running the side of the property. The site is flanked on both sides by residential properties. Permission is sought for a single-storey and two-storey rear extension, shown in plan form here. This slide shows the existing property. And this slide shows the proposed extension, which spans the width of the property at ground floor with a reduced width at first floor. Excuse me. A high-level side window is proposed in the side of the existing property. This would serve an ensuite, which is considered to be a non-habitable room and can be carried out under permitted development. The proposal creates additional space on the ground floor for a kitchen and dining area, with the first floor benefiting from a larger bedroom and inclusion of the ensuite. This slide shows the rear of the property. This is the rear of number 31. A view of the windows in the rear of 31. View of the western boundary in the rear of number 27 in the background. And a view of the application site's rear garden. The key issues for this application relate to the form and character and the effect on residential amenity. The application has been recommended for approval with conditions to ensure the extension is carried out in accordance with the submitted plans. Pass the application back to you, Madam Chairman, for debate.
Thank you. Right, members, anyone wishing to speak on this one, please? Right, no, then I'm going to take you to the recommendation to approve. Kathy, please. So you're voting for approve.
Councillor Bone.
4.
Councillor Bauer.
4.
Councillor Bubb.
4.
Councillor Crofts.
4.
Councillor Holmes.
4.
Councillor Hudson.
Councillor Hudson.
Councillor Lawton. Councillor Manning.
4.
Councillor Knuckles.
4.
Councillor Parish.
4.
Councillor Spiking.
4.
Councillor Squire. Councillor Tyler.
4.
Councillor DeWally.
4.
Councillor Whitby.
4.
Councillor Kirk.
4.
Councillor Rose. 4. And Councillor Sampson. Yeah, that was carried unanimously.
Therefore, that's carried unanimously. Thank you. Now we move on to page 84, which is King's Lynn. There is a speaker. It's a change of use to allow non-football related entertainment events to be held on the premises for up to 4 times a year. Full application, the recommendation is approved. Right. Richard again, please.
That's great. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you.
This application relates to Kingsland Football Club on Tennyson Road. Planning permission is sought for the change of use of the grounds to allow 4 non-football related events to take place in any one calendar year. This slide shows how the site is proposed to be used during an event. Starting on the right, the orange rectangle is where the main stage would be sited with an intervening stage area shown in purple. The green area covers the pitch and would form the viewing area for visitors. On the left is the artist and crew area coloured in blue. The dark green blocks indicate the points of access, and the 3 red-lined areas show the emergency exit routes. This slide shows the existing terraces to the east of the grounds, and this is where the proposed stage would be sited. From outside the ground, looking at the clubhouse and main stand. This is from, again, outside of the site, looking at the rear of the stage area. This is view of the existing car park. View of the main stand. And these images show the houses which are close to the football ground. This one immediately adjacent to the clubhouse. The application has been carefully considered, balancing the principle of the land use change and the effect on neighbouring amenity and highway safety. In reaching a recommendation for approval, the conditions are proposed to limit the number of events to 4 in a calendar year, for an event to take place only between 12 in the afternoon till 10:30 in the evening, Monday to Saturday, which excludes bank holidays, and for the submission and approval of an events management plan, which includes noise mitigation measures prior to an event taking place. I'll pass the application back to you, Madam Chairman, for speakers and debate.
Thank you.
Thank you. Could Stephen Cleeve please come forward? Stephen, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. Thanks for allowing me time to speak, and I'm happy obviously to answer any questions that anyone may have. We're proud of the many achievements that Kingsland Town has made recently, and the stadium improvements which have made it a nicer place, we believe, to watch the game. And great strides have been made to work within the local community. A charity has been formed, and indeed with help from the National Lottery over the coming days, we'll be giving away £7,500 worth of season tickets to families that are struggling at the moment. And live TV games have been shown on national TV, so we hope that as a club, we've helped to give the town of Kingsland greater visibility as a whole. But the costs of running a club are considerable. Simply put, if I was to be hit by the proverbial London bus tomorrow, the club would fold, as my wife would, though she likes football, she doesn't like it as much as I do. And it did go bust in 2009, which, although I was not there at the time, I understand caused a lot of distress locally. The club's an important focal point for the community, but to play at this level attracts huge costs. As an example, travel costs alone for this season are £75,000. The pitch is going to cost us at least £50,000, and our wage bill will be well over £600,000. And I'm not sure it's completely possible for those outside the club to understand the huge costs in keeping the show on the road. So in short, this is not a traditional commercial business. I personally make no money out of the club. We need this planning consent to help us become sustainable. And what we're doing is not groundbreaking. Locally, Norwich and Peterborough both hold concerts every summer at their football stadiums. And so we're simply following a well-trodden path that other football clubs have forged before us. We have an excellent health and safety record, and the same care will be taken at any music event with thorough consultation with the SAG group, the police, the council, the fire services, and any other interested parties. But I mean, the town itself has got a history of excellent music and vibrancy with Festival 2. We'd like to continue along this path ourselves. And if the permission is granted, it will not only be a benefit for local residents, but also for the wider local economy, as well as providing at least 100 jobs at every event. So in short, we've come a long way. We can go a lot further. And the local community is proud of its team, and we know that we're punching above our weight. Last season, we played a lot of ex-league clubs who have far better support and facilities than we have available to us, and not to mention owners who are not only far richer than we are, but also, in one case, a Hollywood superstar. So in the same way that David beat Goliath, this consent will ensure that we are able to have a shot at being on the same pitch with Goliath. We want to make the town proud of its local community football club, and we believe that this planning consent will help us to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything to add, Richard?
No, I don't, thank you.
Right, I'll open it up for debate then, please. Oh, hang on, I've got a lot of hands. Right, I'm going to start with Councillor Holmes, Hudson, Bone, Chris, sorry, Bone,
Manning, Squire.
Crofts, Sampson. Wait a minute. Manning, I might as well say the lot. Right, I'll get round to you in a minute this side. I'll start up here. Chris is down. We start with Councillor Holmes first.
Thank you, Chair. I've got an initial question is how many people are going to be attending these events? Is it in the documentation? I haven't seen it.
What's the capacity of this today place, please?
I haven't got that information in the report, I'm afraid.
The reason why I asked that question is twofold. One, when Kingsland Town are playing, they don't get a capacity crowd. If you have, say, 500 to 600, it's probably a fair result for them. If you have 4,000 to 5,000 people turning up, I can't imagine the streets locally being able to absorb all those.
Sorry,
the car
Lorna,
parks certainly won't.
would you go and ask that gentleman outside what is the capacity, please?
Shall I answer that question? Yeah,
I'll
okay.
get your answer.
Yeah, so the capacity is 5,300 at the moment, and we did achieve, we've had crowds of over 4,000 in the stadium recently.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, carry on.
Okay, well, it may be, but that's for a Saturday afternoon. This is for a whole day. So there are some problems there, I think. And then there's the amenity problem with noise. On balance, personally, I think it's a good idea. And the limitation of 4 per year, excluding Sundays and bank holidays, seems to me to be certainly a good idea. I'm just a bit concerned about how many people are going to be turning up. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Hudson?
The football ground is in my ward. It is in the middle of a residential area. To put a finishing time on of 10:30 is good. 4 times a year, I'm sure that the residents can cope with that if they know it's coming. If it's all packed up and gone away by 11 o'clock, I'm sure that the residents will go along with that as it's for the football club. I am concerned that this will mean a lot of extra work for the club because people will come back home. And as Councillor Holmes has said, we are going to get hopefully, I mean, we'll be looking possibly for 1,000 people coming. That's probably 300 or 400 cars. Can't all stay down there on the chase. So it will need the club to think about parking and what's his name? Mr. Cleave has said that he will speak with all the relevant people involved. So I'm hoping that if he goes with that, it will all be properly organised. I see no reason why it couldn't happen, no reason why it shouldn't happen. And I think it would be, yes, a nice thing for Kingsland and at the same time providing an extra line of income for Kingsland Football Club.
Thank you. Councillor Bone?
Thank you, Chair. As an organiser of a substantial event in the neighbouring field, I can't see any problem with the application. I know previously, prior, probably 10 years ago, there were some events that was held at the stadium prior to Mr. Cleave being in control of it that went badly, and it was a little bit of trouble. I'm sure when a robust event management plan document, which we have to submit for our Pride event, goes forward, he would mitigate that with security and stuff, and also be able to raise conditions and recommend the use of car parks for general public attending these concerts, as we do, with the St James's one probably being the nearest one, to accommodate such a large crowd. I'm a little bit concerned with regards to the times and the disturbance it might have to residents late at night, but I'm sure, again, if they've organised and people knew in advance, 10:30 would be like, so in principle, I've got no qualms. I think it'd be a good thing for the town and a good opportunity for the football club. And providing that is a really in-depth risk assessment and event management put in place, which considers us, which I'm sure that there will be for these events. I think it's a good opportunity for the football club and for the town. So I welcome it.
Thank you. Councillor Crofts.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm not against this application at all. I don't think how we can be. We organise events on the Tuesday marketplace that makes lots and lots of noise. Food people live around there, the same on the walks. And I think that would be double standards if we tried to turn it down. So, but I felt some of the comments that the public have made are nothing to do with planning whatsoever. It's an emotive thing, football clubs, and that's just, the survival of the club. So Mr. Cleve won't like to read this bit where it says the club recently went bankrupt. No, it didn't. But there's had 3 or 4 of these previously in years gone by. The present club is sound as a pound. There's nothing to do with them. But this is the sort of thing the public remember what happened. And to my, I can remember actually one particular group about 15 years ago to my personal cost, but they did. But this is an emotive subject and I can't see how we can turn it down. But the question I want to ask is this. Our community and safety neighbourhood team asked that they had a planning, a temporary event, but Stuart said about it's not necessary to do that. So what I'd like to know is how will the 4 events per year be accommodated? How do we, what was the great word for that? How are they going to be monitored? That's a better word, the 4 events a year.
I mean, they'll be well publicised events, so we'll be aware. I'd also point out there is a licensing regime here, which provides significant controls. In terms of capacity, there'll need to be a fire risk assessment, so that will deal with that. Obviously, there's an event management plan as well that there are numerous, I think, safeguards here.
And Chairman, and just to say that our conditions are certainly that they're more strict than the licence conditions as well in terms of these specific 4 events finishing at 10:30. Thank you, Chairman.
Right, thank you. Councillor Sampson.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I've probably missed it in the various bits of paper. Is the stage a temporary structure so that when football is played, that east stand area becomes available to the viewing public?
Yes.
Yeah. It is. So it's put up for the events and taken down.
Yep.
That's fine. Thank you. Football's not my game, but Kingsland needs its football club, if only to counter the rubbish that's further east. So I'm absolutely in favour of this application.
Right, thank you. Haven't heard that. Councillor Manning.
Yeah, thank you. Obviously, I'm well in favour of this. Many years ago, I mean, what Stephen said is quite true. Nearly every non-league club and also professional clubs as well do use their stadium for other events as well. Certainly, I can remember donkeys years ago in London Borough, Bexley, where I live with my parents. Bexley United, who unfortunately went under. Welling play there now in the National League South, and they used to have wrestling, which when it was very popular, going back a huge number of years, and I've been to events in the summertime. As regards the numbers expected, well, who knows? Obviously, you want as many within as possible. I think the largest crowd I can remember a couple of seasons ago was about 4,000 odd we had when we had York. It was nodding. I suspect that was probably the highest we've had. We're back in the North Division for next season. I've missed obviously a lot of games recently because of losing my wife. I feel like going. but I hope to go back and be there at the beginning of this new season. I used to be a football referee and linesman, so I know what it's like. I know a lot of clubs, been round sort of down the south coast and around London, and had my eyesight and other things sort of questioned quite regularly. Yeah, virtually every club I can think of. I think of Romford, that used to be at Brooklands. They sort of had problems. They built a new ground, wasn't up to stand, went out of business and came back again. So it is important. So definitely I'm delighted to think. And let's face it, we recently gave, as a member of the licensing panel, we gave permission for a music festival down in Hotwood-cum-Wilton, which probably went down very well with everybody. However, and they've got it for more than 1 year, but if there are problems, there will be objections. The police will object, and then we can rescind the license. So I would, recommend to colleagues support them. We need this club to go forward. I think we can get back to the National League. At least I hope so. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Squire.
Thank you. I'm a little bit confused, I have to say, on the days and the number of events, because we're saying that it's 4 events a year. Each should be a day long, but then we list 6 days where events can possibly be held of Monday to Saturday. So presumably most events would be a Friday and Saturday, so I would have preferred that was restricted to Fridays and Saturdays. But one question I have is it possible for those days to run concurrently, as in you could have different events on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday in 1 week? Because I think if local residents have issues on noise, then it would be better if they were better spaced out rather than squeezed into 1 week. But apart from that, I think, yeah, great. The football club should be supported. Football's, as I'm with Councillor Sampson on this, not my thing, not enough water involved, but it's important for the town and more events could be wonderful. However, there is one non-planning thing that I would like to say, that inciting harassment of councillors is wholly unacceptable. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I don't know anything about that, and I'm not here to discuss it at a planning meeting. You have put forward the fact about Ultra and how they work this model, but I don't know what their business model is going to be. And at this stage, I don't really want to. Oh, well, my view is that I wouldn't like to see a restriction. They're asking for 4 days. Is that all right? Just 4 days? None of this 6. As I read it, it says condition 4 talks about the times and everything, 4 and 6. So what is it exactly we're voting on?
As I read it,
yeah,
an event is a single day. So yeah, if they have 4 in a week, that's the year, done. So it's highly unlikely that will happen.
Right, now I start from Councillor Parish going along. Anyone else wishing to speak from here? Please, Bob, do you want to Councillor Parish or not? You don't have to, but if... Well, quick.
Right. Well, I have to admit that I've never been to a football match. I don't watch football, and football is irrelevant to me. But the issue I do have is this numbers business. People are questioning how many people will turn up. Well, in the condition, there's an event management plan has to be done. Now, within that plan, would it be stated that it has to be a ticket-only attendance? I mean, these days, if you attend somewhere, you buy your ticket online, they know how many people are going to turn up, and they cater for that number. Or is it going to be open house and anybody can turn up? So you could have 5,000 turn up and cause havoc in the town. Or it's ticket only, so 500 or 600 turn up and that's managed. I can't see you can have an event which is open house, quite honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I would suggest that it will be ticketed. Obviously, there are stewards, sets out here that will be stewards to supervise and manage the events and offer security to maintain order, and there's 45 employees associated with proposed events. Any events management plan would include those kind of details as well as noise mitigation scheme, I would suggest, and it's controlled by a licence, and it's controlled by a fire risk assessment. Yeah, so all those different controls.
All I was asking was, is it going to be, are they ticketed events or open house events?
It's not, it doesn't, I would presume it is, it's not specified.
Are you presuming? Well,
can we put a condition on that? We have to, if it's a condition, it has to be fair, reasonable and deliverable. So they are the things that we have to look at if you ask for a condition.
I think if there are problems with this, again, a license, you can review the license. I mean, that's always there. anyway in the background. So there, as I said earlier, there's lots of potential controls.
I can't think of any enclosed space where an event takes place which isn't ticketed. I mean, the events that have been quoted in the Kingsland area, it's public space, so you can't ticket it. But when it's an enclosed space, a football stadium, you ticket it. You know, otherwise, where's the cars going to go if it's not controlled?
Well, I mean, a football ground, you can just turn up and pay on the door. You don't have to. You can get your ticket on the, you go on the day.
But
so you don't know whether you're going to get 800 or 5,000. You know,
it's all dependent on who the artist or band or whatever
exactly.
is that's going to come. I mean, to say if it was somebody like the Rolling Stones, I'll be there in his car. But
well, you hit the nail on the head, really. I mean, CSNN asked for some details of what sort of events might be planned, and then they might be able to comment more appropriately. But it seems reasonable to me that in an enclosed space with limited parking, that it's the only controls you can have is the numbers attending. The only way you can do that is through ticketing.
I'm not sure there's limited parking. People can park on St James multi-storey. It's a short walk through. They do now for walks events. You know, it's really well accessible. Actually, you've got the train station, the bus station, fairly just.
If I may continue, then I've never seen quite so many bullet points raised by CSN, and I know some have been addressed, like the plan, event management plan, and the timings have been reduced to comply with that CSN request. But their last bullet point on page 86 says, may recommend a temporary approval, i.e. for 1 year, to allow monitoring and to see if they cannot be suitably controlled to protect residential amenity. So is there a problem with a 1 year permission?
And that's up to you as members. We don't think it's reasonable or necessary. Again, you've got the license. If there are problems, that would be it will be reviewed through that. So that's our view. I mean, obviously, you as members may take a different approach on that.
yeah. So are you proposing that then as a temporary, or having heard that, is it necessary? We will take, you know, it's up to you. I'm asking you the question.
It's CSNN that are proposing it or suggesting it. So I like CSNN, and I don't like it when they're sort of ignored. So yes, I'd recommend a temporary approval. And if everything goes hunky-dory, then they can go on forever, can't they?
Right. Do you have a second for that then? Councillor Diwali? Well, I'll vote on that. Does anybody want to see a temporary for a 1 year put on this application? Just read that. I am asking you, proposed by Councillor Parish, seconded by Councillor Diwali. They are asking for a temporary 1 year to have for the entertainment, to try it. No. Yeah, I'm going to take it to the vote. Kathy, if you can do it. So that's what we're voting on. Should they have a temporary 1 year? Sorry? No, I'm not. I'm taking the vote round the table.
Councillor Bone.
Councillor Bone?
Could I just have a little bit further?
Yes?
Would this not be monitored by CNCN and licensing department? Is it a planning consideration before we vote? Because I'm a little bit confused.
But they've proposed it and seconded that. I have to take it to the vote. But you can vote against it or for it. So it's up to you.
Well, I'm a little bit confused, so I'm going to abstain.
Okay. Yeah, do you want me to clarify it a bit further for you? Right, yeah.
I think the CSNN office, which Councillor Parrish referred to, has said you could put a temporary 1 year consent on to see how it goes, if you like, for that 1 year. We as planning officers in assessing that consultee comment don't believe it's necessary to do that. We think there are controls through licensing which could lead to a review of the licence. So we haven't proposed that temporary 1 year consent. Obviously, Councillor Parrish, seconded by Councillor Diwali, have proposed a 1 year temporary consent to assess how it operates for that first year, then come back again after that.
So we now go to Councillor Bone. Are you for or against?
This is for or against a temporary?
Having a temporary 1 year.
I'm against.
You're against. Okay. Right. He's against, Kathy.
Councillor Bauer.
Against.
Councillor Bubb.
Again.
Councillor Crofts.
Against.
Councillor Holmes.
Against.
Councillor Hudson. Against. Councillor Lawton. Councillor Manning.
Against.
Councillor Knockholes.
Against.
Parish.
For.
Councillor Spiking.
Against.
Councillor Squire. Councillor Tyler.
Against.
Councillor DeWolling.
For.
Councillor Whitby.
Against.
Councillor Kirk.
Against.
Councillor Rose. And Councillor Sampson. Yeah, that was lost.
Therefore, that proposal was lost. We carry on with the debate. I've now got Councillor Bub.
Thank you. I think it's a good idea from the point of view of keeping the place viable. It's a good idea because there's nowhere really like that set out with seating where you can have a concert. But my concern is that whilst the football is attracting a certain number of people, largely who know where the place is and how to get there and what it's like, a concert is going to attract people from much further afield who don't know the area, who are going to drive in and find that there's virtually no parking because the band and the management have taken up most of the car park. This traffic is going to pile back to the level crossing, and there may be a train coming. What do you do then? I think we need some sort of condition to get some parking or traffic management for the crowds that they hope will come. Otherwise, you're going to have trouble on Tennyson Road.
Well, if this event goes ahead like over the 4, will they be having the like highways boards to say parking here or event so-and-so that there's more clarification for visitors?
They could do, but again,
Yeah.
should we hold this against this? I mean, there are events that take place in the walks now, obviously, that attract thousands of people. I think Forks in the Walks, for example. I mean, there is an events management plan. I think that is fair that detail comes in. I don't think it's necessary. There are signs up now. Obviously, you would think people wouldn't park on the level crossing. I mean, it's common sense. It's clear now that doesn't happen. The football crowds that come. You know, I'm not saying they're going to park on the level crossing. They can't get off the level crossing because the traffic is jammed up because it can't find anywhere to park. But again, that's no different than now when traffic's backed up. I can't see that would be reasonable.
Anyway, highway code says don't go and park on railway lines. Sorry. Councillor DeWally.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of my points. I live opposite a pub, and I don't have issue with loud events infrequently going up to about 10:30 p.m. But then I don't have to put toddlers to sleep. The only other point escapes me now, so I shall leave it at that. Thank you.
Right, Councillor Bauer, and then Crofts back.
Well, I was referring back to this traffic problem, actually. Before you go to an event, if you don't know the area, usually you have a look on a map or Google it, have a look, see where the nearest car park is, and then plan it in advance. And quite honestly, most people do that.
Yeah. I think this is going to be another welcome addition to our offering that we have for Kingsland. It's certainly something we haven't got at the moment. I think only four days in a year is more than acceptable. I just hope they have some quality people come along and the football will get the revenue that's so needed, because we certainly don't want to see another asset come out of Lynn because of financial constraints. It is difficult for businesses to get a grip and get the money. And if you want to have all these things coming along, and for people who like the sport, we all have to play our part if we can and see Kingsland promoted, and it's certainly going to be a different thing. So anyway, and now up to you, Councillor Rose. Do you want to speak? No? Don? No? Elizabeth? I'm just going round here first because you've all had a chat. Well, Lawton, no. Whitby, Kirk, no. Right, now I can go back to you, Chris. Sorry, but they...
I thought you'd missed me, Madam Chair.
No, I got you down.
I'm easily missed, I understand that quite clearly. But this could be a licensing issue, and when you have over so many people attending an event, and when there is a licensing hearing, there are statutory consultees. One will be the planning department and the police and all sorts. They all get their chance to contribute, and I think this should be something that will put members' minds at rest. It can be a licensing issue when you get over so many people. I believe I'm correct in saying that. I mean, I've got a bit to do with licensing, but I believe it will be an issue that will where there will be an application made, and then the full thing to be discussed then. But the police are certainly separate consultees, and so are the planning department. So that should cover all that.
Thank you. And so anyone else wishing to speak before I take the vote? Anything to add, please, Richard?
No, nothing to add, thank you.
Right then, Kathy, then I have no proposals other than the recommendation to approve.
Okay, Councillor Bone.
Councillor Bone?
For.
Councillor Bauer.
For.
Councillor Bell.
For.
Councillor Crofts.
For.
Councillor Holmes.
For.
Councillor Hudson. Councillor Lawton.
For.
Councillor Manning.
For.
Councillor Nichols.
For.
Councillor Parish.
Abstain.
Councillor Spikings.
For.
Councillor Squire. Councillor Tyler.
For.
Councillor DeWally.
For.
Councillor Whitby.
For.
Councillor Kirk.
For.
Councillor Rose. And Councillor Sampson. Yeah, 17 for 1 abstention.
Thank you. So therefore that is carried for approval. And now we move on to Turrington St Clements on page 96. It's a reserved matters, proposed new dwelling and garage and associated works. And there's speakers, and the recommendation here is to approve. And Councillor Squire will be talking under Standing Order 34. Remove herself from this and speak and go that route. So who's doing that? Richard, Lorna?
No, it's Lorna.
Lorna, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Sorry. So this application is a reserved matters and it relates to just plot 1 here. Plot 2 and 3 have already had their reserved matters applications approved. This one has been refused in the past reserved matters, and it was down to the size of a garage and summer house close to the boundary with this neighbour here. Also, the size of the dwelling has been reduced slightly. There's a side extension was omitted. So the site itself, so you've got Marshland Street here, and then it's Churchgate Way over this, you can see on this one here. So these houses here are along Churchgate Way. So the application is come to committee because of the assistant director has put it forward. The parish council don't object, but they did raise a few concerns about access, and there's no objections from consultees. So just to clarify, there is a conservation area here. So this goes around the site along here, but part of the access road falls into it because it comes down here. And it's for reserved matters, this application. For layout, scale, appearance and landscaping, access has already been agreed separately. So the next slide. This shows the proposed house here. So as I explained, the side extension has been omitted, which was on the previous one, and also the garage is smaller than what was previously put forward. The garage has been reduced by 0.7 metres in height compared to the previous scheme. So its eaves come to 2.7 metres high, and its ridge 3.7 metres high. Okay, so these plans show the previous scheme, which was refused, so you can see comparison. It was refused on the grounds before that the proposed garage summer house on plot 1, which is here, by virtue of its height and siting would create unacceptable loss of amenity to number 48, which is here. So you can see that this has been amended on the current scheme, so it's been brought further away from this neighbour, and also this side addition has been removed. And then this is the refused scheme before, just showing the layout of the garage summer house. You can kind of see it here, so you can see it's a bigger structure, and also where this side extension was. And then I'll just go down and show you some photos. So you can see plots 2 and 3 that have already been approved or under construction on site. So this is from views into the site from the street itself. And then this is the neighbour, number 48, you can see. So plot 1 is here. And again, you can see plot 1 site is here, and then this is one of the neighbouring properties, plot 2, which is already under construction. And this is showing 2 and 3 under construction again. And that again is showing the neighbour to the north. So we're recommending approval as they have amended the size of the garage and location of it, which was the concern why it was refused previously. There aren't any late reps, but I believe the speakers. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Could Dr. Carol Parker come forward, please? Carol, you have 3 minutes.
Oh, sorry. Okay, I live at number 48 Marshland Street in the designated conservation area. This committee, as you've already discussed, kindly rejected the previous application to build an oversized and imposing summer house and garage on the boundary of our home. The latest modification situates the garage a small distance from our property boundary, along with a large family home. And I've got a picture with the measurements on there for you to see. Our boundary is shown in green and the conservation area is light blue. A 2-metre high hedge is the main feature between our home and the development. We remain concerned about the loss of our residential amenity from the proximity of the large garage being at its closest point around 70 centimetres from our boundary. There's a suggested figure of 2.7 metres in the documentation, and I just respectfully would question where that measurement starts from. Our odd-shaped historic home limits the things we can do to alleviate the impact of this development. Many neighbours around the site are extending their hedges and fences to over 3 metres to retain a degree of privacy. Unfortunately for us, the main hedge is our southerly aspect, and it's much closer to our home than is usual. If we were to allow the hedges to grow to retain our privacy, we would also lose most of the natural light to the majority of our main living areas. The heart of our home, which is our 60-year-old kitchen with French windows, will gaze directly into the rear of this garage. We have suggested the garage be moved further away from our home and be reduced in height. The height has been reduced to 3.7 metres, but remains substantially higher than our hedge and no further away from our home. We remain concerned that this will impact our home life detrimentally for what is essentially an optional outbuilding. This garage and house are large in relation to our modest home. Could I have the next picture, please? We believe the difficulties faced by the developer in securing adequate off-road parking and a garage are due to this home being too large for the limited remaining space. In short, the development may be considered overbearing. It will impact its neighbours and substantially alter the view from Marshland Street. We had hoped for a more modest and considered design, but it appears that some of the aspects of the proposal are inflexible. Some neighbours are surprised at the size of the 2 buildings already on site and the idea that another home will join them, and some feel the area will be better served as a communal car park for the site. I remain disappointed that we must object again to try and find a more sympathetic design with less impact on the village centre and my home. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Parker. Now, Gareth Edwards, please. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Councillors, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you in support of this proposal for a single dwelling at Plot 1, Marston Street, Turrington, St Clement. This is a reserved matters application following an outline approval for 3 number dwellings and following a further approval under reserve matters for plots 2 and 3, which are currently under construction, along with the access roadway. The proposal comes with the support of all the statutory consultees, including the Conservation Officer, who confirms the proposal is not considered likely to lead to harm to the conservation area. Since this application previously came before you, we have made revisions to the size and the location of the existing dwelling, moving it further away from the neighbouring property, and also the scale and location of the detached garage. The garage has now been located further away from the neighbouring dwelling and reduced in height and size. It should be noted that, as the Google image shows, historically there was a timber storage building closer to the neighbouring dwelling, and this image is from 2018. The previous owner of the site has confirmed he accessed the building with a forklift truck, and its height at the front was 9 foot and going down to 7 foot at the rear. This building was removed when the site was cleared for the proposed development. I hope you will agree we have addressed the concerns you made on the previous application and worked closely with your officer to have this proposal in front of you with their support, and will retain all existing boundary treatments. I would ask you to support the recommendation with the conditions highlighted. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Councillor Squire?
Thank you. I have to say that I...
Sandra, Squire, could you sit over there?
Oh,
Sorry.
okay.
Sorry. Thanks. Yep.
Thanks. Thank you. I have to say that I support the neighbour's objection, as I have done with the previous application. Of the wider site, this is the only property of the 3 that has a separate garage. I don't think that saying that because there is a previous storage building in that area is reason enough to whack something else up in its place. Number 48 is a very odd shaped building. It's an old building. So to say that, well, the building's been extended so they've used their own garden up, doesn't really matter to the lady living there now. Their garden runs alongside the road. It's their only usable area of garden. And while, yes, the size and height of the garage has been reduced, it will block the light because the light comes from that direction. So I wouldn't want a 3 metre high plus building towering over my garden, blocking my light and the light from my living room and my kitchen. And I don't see why they should have to do that as well. It will affect their quality of life and their enjoyment of the garden. Why that garage can't be moved back or be adjoined to the house, I don't know, it's not for me to say, but I don't believe that it is right or fair to put a single garage, when none of the other buildings have them, right on that boundary to affect the neighbour. Ideally, I'd like you to have a site visit so you can actually see the effect of that building on that garden, and I think that would probably be the most appropriate course of action, because the maps and overhead, they don't really tell you the true picture. So to see it may be very different. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything to add, please?
I just want to clarify, is the garage would be 2 metres from that shared boundary with the neighbour, so there was an error in the report.
Chairman, can I just clarify that, please? That's the closest point. There's a range between 2 metres and 2.7. The point is, the closest point here is 2 metres. The rest of it is 2.7 metres. Chairman, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone wishing to speak? Councillor Wally?
To move things along, I'm happy to propose a site visit.
Right, Councillor Crofts, are you seconding that? That's right. Well, we are at Turrington anyway, so it's only round the corner. I'm going to ask for a site visit first, unless you've got some point of clarification you'd like before I take the vote. Yes. All right then. Kathy, could you go around and see if we want a site visit, please, or hands up if it's quicker? Could those in favour of a site visit, please? Looks like that's a yes. So we'll have a site on this one as well. We're out, we might as well go make it good. Thank you, members. Right, we now move on to page 107. It's retrospective construction of timber stables for non-commercial purposes. It's a full application and the recommendation here is approved. We definitely want a boost. Do those two first, then we'll go at each. No. At last, then I can get the toilet. Yeah. Right. Is that you, Lorna? Thank you.
Yeah. So this application, it's a retrospective one for these timber stables. The parish council, the reason it's here is because the parish council's response is contrary to officer recommendation and sifting panel have referred it. So the parish council objects because it uses agricultural land, and they were saying the change of use has previously been refused and it doesn't conform to the neighbourhood plan and outside the development boundary. Okay, so the site itself is off School Road, so it's on the eastern side here. So this is where the stables are. The main dwelling it's associated with is called the Step, and that's just next to it here. The site is in the countryside, so you can see it forms an L shape here, and it would be for horses used by the applicant of the Step. So, and the condition is included to say that it would have to be only for their horses. So you can see the layout here, there's 4 stables. This one is a timber structure, and it's approximately 2.8 metres high. And I'll just show you some photos. So you've got the structure here, and you've got a bit of hard standing. And you can see the proximity to the host, well, the dwelling it's associated with here. This block of stables, I mean, they're quite well screened from the street. You can kind of see because of the vegetation. And there's the stables. So they're kind of hidden as well behind this wooden fence. So we're recommending approval for this, given like the scale of it, it's not highly visible, and this use is, you know, is found within the countryside, stables which are ancillary, which are associated with nearby properties. So in terms of that, we do consider it complies with policy. Thank you, Chairman. So we're recommending approval.
Thank you. Anyone wishing to speak on this one? No, then the recommendation is approved. Kathy?
Councillor Bone,
4.
Councillor Power,
4.
Councillor Bubb,
4.
Councillor Crofts,
4.
Councillor Holmes,
4.
Councillor Hudson, Councillor Lawton, Councillor Manning,
4.
Councillor Nichols,
4.
Councillor Parish,
Against.
Councillor Spikings,
A 4.
Councillor Squire, Councillor Tyler,
4.
Councillor Diwali,
4.
Councillor Whitby,
4.
Councillor Kirk,
4.
Councillor Rose,
4.
and Councillor Sampson. Yeah, that's carried 17 votes for, 1 against.
Thank you, that's carried. We now move on to page 114. There's late correspondence, 2 speakers. It's Tilney All Saints, outline application, some matters reserved for the erection of 2 dwellings. As I said, it's outline and the recommendation is approved, members. Who's doing that? Lorna? Right, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. So this application is for, as has been explained, for outline permission for 2 dwellings, which would be on this and the site boundary is shown in red here. It's off Cots Lane. This goes into a public right-of-way beyond the access point, so further along here. Some other properties around here. It's within the development boundary, this site. And it's surrounded by residential. This property here, Thriftfields, is the dwelling associated with it. They do run, they do have like a dog boarding and grooming business that they operate from there. And you will see in the late reps that CSNN have recommended acoustic fencing along here with respect to that. Also in the late reps, I'll just highlight there was also another condition which was suggested because we had the arboricultural comments come in, and they suggested for a replacement tree planting one, because there'll be, I think it's around 5 trees that are going to be removed as part of the proposal. So that would be linked to that, and they had no objections to the scheme. So the proposal, it's for, I'll just go into here. So it's for layout and access only, are the only matters being looked at. So we don't have any elevation drawings for this one. So you can see this dwelling to the north here. I just want to clarify as well in the report itself that under the assessment of residential impact on neighbours, it's mixed up plots B and plots A. So I'll just clarify here. So plot B here, this one, there's a garage here, and this will be 10.7 metres from this neighbour here. And it will be 18.2 metres between this dwelling and the house itself. There's another residential property over here, and this is 28.3 metres away from this property over here. So you can see on here, there was also the proposal is for some off-site highways improvement for Cots Lane, and that would be associated with widening the road. And that would, there's a condition that's associated with that to tie that in. The proposal is for larger dwellings, and it looks like, although the neighbourhood plan seeks to have more dwellings for mobility reasons and that, due to flood risk, they can't go as single stories, so we won't be able to have bungalows. It also doesn't depict the number of bedrooms here, although it does suggest from the drawing, the layout here, that potentially would be more than 2 bedrooms, which the neighbourhood plan seeks for starter homes. However, the applicant has said that it's unviable to do less than to do two bedroom properties, for instance, given they did have a previous application they put in for 3 dwellings and they were told it was too cramped. So I mean, they won't be able to put any extra in, and that's why they're saying if the maximums they can do is 2, they need them slightly bigger. But like I say, we don't have details for the actual number of bedrooms here, but it's just from what we can see on the drawings. So here I'll show you the photos. So we're standing in the site looking east towards Thriftfields. So that's the host dwelling, the donor dwelling, sorry, in the background. And then this is the neighbour Cots Willow, that's to the north, that was showing prior, which is near plot B. And then this one is the northern boundary, is to the left, and the neighbouring dwelling is El Castillo in the background. So there is residential properties around the site. And then that's looking across the site. Like I was explaining before, there is dog boarding and grooming associated, but the applicants made it clear that although there was a few structures within the site, they can all be contained within the donor dwelling Thriftfields in the future. So it won't require a business to be closed. And then this is Thriftfields, a donor dwelling, you can see. That's again the existing access into the site. So it's viewed from inside the site. So there would be some improvement works to that road. You can see along Cots Lane again. Okay, so we are recommending approval for this one. There is some comments in late reps, and as I explained, there was 2 conditions, 17 and 18 listed in there, which I've explained we would be seeking to put forward. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. We have 2 speakers. Could John James come forward, please? You have 3 minutes, John.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.
Good afternoon.
I have no problems with the on-site development of 2 houses. However, what does concern me is ploughing through the documents in the planning submission. I cannot find any current comments by Norfolk County Council Highways Department as to their conditions of what they require to upgrade Cots Lane. So I'll read to you submit the highways issues that were in 2000, in the initial application in 2008, put on the site by Norfolk County Council. Cots Lane is an unclassified road, which is a public maintained highway, providing access to serve 4 dwellings in the lane. There is little space for overtaking or any other manoeuvring. The highway officer has viewed the revised application and considers the site and access suitable to serve 2 new dwellings, which is the current application, and provide turning for service vehicles. However, this would require localized carriageway widening to 4.1 meters to the lane to enable 2 vehicles to pass, and surface works undertaken to the satisfaction of the Highways Authority. The area for improvement is the area from the outside of the bending Cots Lane northwest towards the bridleway, covering the land in control of the Highways Authority, being to a point 17.5 meters northwest of the northernmost corner of Thriftfields. The ownership of the land northwest of the point, footpath and bridleway, has not been established and does not form part of the application. My contention is that having tried to discover what the current requirements of Norfolk County Council Highways Department are, I cannot find it in the current application. And to me, the drawings produced by the developer are a fudge, because in order to turn vehicles into that site, fire engines, dust carts, you would need more than the existing access. In fact, you would need an access to the width of, say, 50 feet, which would be a radius of 15 meters approximately, which is what you would get normally on a commercial site. It is very tight, and I am absolutely aghast that, having spent hours ploughing through the conditions, I cannot find this mentioned. To me, I tried to contact Bradley Downs. I wrote to him in January. I rang up in December, in February.
I'm sorry, sir, but I'm afraid you've had your 3 minutes.
3 minutes?
Yes. Thank you.
Mr. Andy Lawton, please.
Okay. Thank you.
You have 3 minutes, Mr. Lawton.
Good afternoon, councillors. I'm Andy Lawton. I'm chair of Tilney All Saints Parish Council and chaired the neighbourhood planning group. I'm speaking on behalf of the parish council and objecting to the proposed planning application. The supporting statement produced by the planning case officer gives one commercial reason why the development should go ahead, despite the planning objections raised by the parish council. Our objections have been made with reference to the Tilney All Saints neighbourhood plan, which was produced after 4 years of considerable effort and now is being ignored and sidelined. The planning officer states it's a real demand for large family housing areas and houses in the area, and says that the core strategy requires a target of at least 1,280 new dwellings over the period 2011 to 2026. So this development must go ahead. Strangely enough, this statement is also quoted in a document produced by NFK Planning and Ellingham Consulting as well. This rationale seems to have been accepted by the case officer to justify his recommendation to overrule the objections of the parish council and other local residents, despite the fact that the prescribed allocation for Tilney All Saints in the local development framework was for just 5 properties,
and that allocation has already been met and surpassed. We've already had 7 large family properties and 1 smaller property built in Tilney All Saints. Published, in the flood mitigation report, quotes that it's unclear about surface water drainage. The riparian drain to the southwest of the property is described as if it were part of a fully functioning system. A detailed examination, which has obviously not been carried out by the consultants as yet, will show that the capacity of the drain has been severely compromised as it is badly overgrown and has been partially filled with rubble by the present owner. I have photographs showing the state of the dike and they've just been shown now, thank you. The adjacent property, number 1 Cotts Lane, is at least a foot lower than the existing level of Thriftfields, and their plans specify that the ground levels of the new buildings will be raised at least a further 0.5 metres. The IDB have already raised concerns about drainage in their response to an earlier withdrawn application on this site. Access states that highway safety and access statement says that Cotts Lane is a wholly adopted county highway. The continuing lack of any repairs by the county highways over decades shows that it is and has been, to all intents and purposes, unadopted, or if it was adopted, its parents have unfortunately passed away. The residents at number 1 frequently have to cope with customers of the kennels at Thriftfields blocking the lane and their access. Because of the narrow width of the lane, some of the visitors to kennels have been unable to drive their own cars out of the lane. Service vehicles find it difficult or impossible to negotiate the lane. As I would like to make a suggestion, as it stands, plot A is slightly larger.
Sorry, sir, but you've also had your 3 minutes. It goes so quick.
Thank you. You won't hear my suggestion then, which would have been a compromise, but thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Anything to add, please?
I'll just respond in terms of highways. We did have Highway Authority comments, which are on page 116. They don't object to it of the agenda, and also highways was assessed under 122, page 122, sorry. It explains that as far as the Borough Council is aware, to carry out highways improvement works as required by the local highway authority will not involve any third-party land, will only utilise the existing highway verge as previously approved under 15/01498/0. It should be noted there was a previous permission for 2 detached dwellings and outline which weren't implemented. Furthermore, there's also conditions 7 and 8 relate to access and off-site improvement works associated with the Highway Authority's comments. Thank you.
And the IDB I've heard mentioned?
Chairman, Falun surface water drainage are considered within condition 5 going forward.
Right, thank you. Members, anyone wishing to speak on this one, please? Councillor Whitby and Kirk first. Councillor Whitby.
I'm the local councillor for the area, and going down Cotts Lane, delivering leaflets even. I did try driving down there, and that's difficult to turn. You have to go onto people's property to actually back in to get out again. So that's unsuitable for more dwellings down there, basically, because of the actual road access. And you can see there's a picture of that, entrance. You can see how close the property is opposite. You find that one? That's that one, yeah.
That one?
No, that one there. That shows the sort of condition of the road or the land down there. So that's totally unsuitable, really, and that's wide, and so you can get in out there and you can see the car park opposite. What sort of condition their sort of driveway is over there where people have churned it up.
Right, Councillor Kirk.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, that's within my county division there, and I fully support the parish council and local residents council would be in objecting to this for the same reasons as been mentioned. Listening to local opinion, there's been many delivery vans, the Amazon type vans getting grounded on corners and everything down there. Really isn't suitable at the moment, not for any building down there. And the flood issue is a problem, I maintain. So I'll be objecting to it. Thank you.
Right, but you're not making any proposals, just merely making a statement. Right, Parish, Councillor Parish? And I've got Councillor Squire.
Thank you, Chair. When I saw this application, I thought it had been slipped in as a training exercise for members, so that we could identify the things that were wrong with it. The supporting statement has got this paragraph in saying that there's a real demand for large family houses as people are relocating from surrounding rural villages, etc. And this is, the applicant talking up the reason why they want to build 2P houses on the site. And then on page 120, the officer actually quotes that as supporting the application. Well, I don't think that's reasonable, actually, for an officer to quote a supporting statement as a reason for something being approved. And the parish council have given clear reasons, and they've turned up as to why they don't agree with this application. It obviously compromises their neighbourhood plan, which has taken 4 years to create. In their neighbourhood plan, they want small houses, starter homes or affordable. They've already got sufficient houses that's come through the plan allocation. And somebody said, and I think they said, the officer said this, that there's a real need for these houses to meet the 1,000 odd houses that are needed in the current plan. Well, there aren't. We have sufficient houses being built, and that's why in the emerging neighbourhood plan, nobody's been asked to actually put forward any more new housing allocations. So there are no room for these houses anyway. The neighbourhood plan says if we do have to have more houses, they need to be of small size, which are useful to normal people, rather than large developments, which will probably end up as a nice holiday home in the country. And I fail to see why officers have supported it so strongly at all. There is an indication that the developer would be put out if they had to build smaller houses because it wouldn't be viable. Well, if it isn't viable, they can't build them. It's easy as that. We're not here to create a situation where a site is viable for an applicant. We're here to see whether the application is suitable for the environment and for the parish in which it is located. I could go on, but I ramble when I do go on.
You've only got 5 minutes.
But this really annoys me, this one. So I will be voting against it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Squire.
I have to agree with Councillors Parish and Kirk, really. It's an area I know a little bit. The photo for me that shows a lot is slide 111 of the entrance that's currently up on screen. It's a very wet site. All of those photos look the ground is very wet, so it's not draining well at all. And I would have real worry about emergency vehicle access. They're going to struggle. If God forbid one of those houses was built and burnt down, they would struggle to get down that lane and get in and out with equipment. And so for that reason alone, I don't think I can support it.
Thank you. Hannah?
Chairman, thank you. I just want to talk about the housing mix policy of the Tilney All Saints neighbourhood plan. I mean, Councillor Parish is right. It does say that to achieve a more diverse housing stock, proposal should include dwellings of 2 bedrooms or fewer, including dwellings suitable for or easily adaptable for older or less mobile residents. It goes on a bit more. But then it says any proposal that does not provide the mixed responsible local need or provide homes suitable for older or less mobile people or smaller dwellings will need to be justified with clear evidence that such homes are not required or that the development is made not viable by meeting these expectations. Now, it's not a case that the case officer has ignored the comments of the neighbourhood plan. Actually, he's addressed that point by virtue of the last paragraph on page 119 and the first paragraph on 120, and he's given reason as to why he considers that the application complies with the neighbourhood plan. One of the reasons is there's been an application in before. It's been shown that it wasn't a site suitable for three smaller dwellings, along with other reasons. So we haven't gone on the basis of just the applicant's statement. We've taken it in the round based on previous history. Thank you, Chairman.
Right. Anyone else wishing to speak on this application, please? Because I haven't got anything. Oh, Councillor Bubb.
As we are in the area on our site visits, could we not visit this at the same time?
It's either all or nothing.
From that, it looks an impossibility, but it may look slightly different on the ground. There are houses beyond the site. They must have some sort of arrangement for their refuse collection, etc. So personally, I'd like to propose that we go there as well. I'd like to see what's on the ground.
Right, do you have a seconder? Councillor Squire. All those who are proposing need to be attending as well, please. Not just a case of we'll do it in here and then not turn up. Right, we've asked for a site visit. Those who'd like a site visit to this site, please. Oh, we're there, we go for it. We're doing it anyway. I think it's unanimous. We're having a site. Right, kill or curtain for that one. Right, okay. Right, members, we've finished that. I'm just going to carry on with the next two, please. Then we can finish. Right, on 128, we've got the planning enforcement report. This report provides members with an update of the service and where we are. It talks about the cases alive, the cases closed, and obviously the work list of the staff there and the reasons why we have so many. So anyone wanting to make comment on this? If you want to know anything about any of the enforcement, would you go direct to the case officer, please? Because obviously we can't know everyone within this document. But Councillor Bubb?
Thank you. This is a long list. Some of these things are quite historic.
Yeah.
Is there some way we can look at the progress of the ones in our ward without disturbing the busy officer?
No, I mean, they are on obviously on the list. If you, yes, Dersium, I get, if you've got any specific concerns on individual cases, no, do contact us and we'll go through them with you. We tried to put it in parish order to make it a bit easier for you.
Which is brilliant.
Of something that's been there.
Oh, please contact us. Yeah, contact.
I'm conscious that officers are very busy.
Yeah.
Yeah, but don't feel free as council. Yeah. Contact Matthew Clary in the first instance as the team leader. Yeah, he'll be happy to give you an update on those. Yeah.
Right,
please do
Councillor
that.
Wally, as I say, please don't cherry pick and then expect everyone's
It's
going to
a
know.
very simple question. Are we? It's a very long list. The vast majority of pending consideration. Are we happy that we have sufficient resource?
If you see what's coming to CPP tomorrow and how many officers are proposed to rectify this, you will see that the council's made great strides to sort this problem out. Obviously the staff have had a lot of issues because trying to recruit and all the other things that have gone on, but further funding has become available, and the CPP report outlines all what's proposed and the structure and how it's going to be in the office and all the rest of it and how we take it forward. We're the only one in Norfolk that actually has as many enforcement cases anyway. So I think well done to the staff. They've worked hard, they have a huge workload, but I'm afraid you cannot overburden a few. So it has been taken note of and they will be sorting this out for us. Because if you remember, planning fees have had an increase. So more funding's being directed to it.
Can I just add to that? The pending consideration is a bit misleading. That's the software that pulls through and that is the description it gives. It's not actually. Yeah. We've only got a few descriptions on there, and it doesn't tell the story basically of the work that's gone into in terms of investigation that's already gone on. So I wouldn't necessarily go off that. If you have any specific concerns in your area, again, come and see us, and we'll update you.
Okay. Everyone happy then? So we've noted that. And then I go on to page 180. Last but not least, applications determined under delegated power. We note those. Okay. Right, then in which case I close the meeting and I'll see you all next Tuesday. I know. Yep. Thank you very much.